Good evening. Welcome to the Lompoc City Council meeting. I didn't knock on the wall. Good evening and welcome to the Lompoc City Council meeting. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Ashley Costa. Present. Councilmember Dirk Starbuck.
Present.
Councilmember Bob Lingle.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dwayne Holmdahl.
Here.
Mayor John Lynn.
Here. And if you would all rise for the invocation, Pastor Gilbert Stones.
Apologize, I'm going to be invoking and running tonight because I have another meeting across town, but let us center ourselves in a moment of silence. Upon you, O God, who embody the wisdom of the universe, we call tonight. Wisdom, who is the core and cause of all that is. Wisdom, who first named the vastness of space. Wisdom, who called forth stars, planets, and immense galaxies. Wisdom, who crafted our earth and sun from cosmic gas and dust. Wisdom, who called us out of the void and gave us inquisitive minds to study, learn, and understand. You who set the celestial bodies in motion, gift us with wise courses. You who set quantum mechanics in the finest balance, gift us with balanced judgment. You who give a place to both darkness and light, gift us with justice. You who set the stars to shine, gift us with the light of understanding. Wisdom beyond measure, we call upon you tonight to gift us with wisdom that will please you. Make us worthy of the high calling of civic responsibility and governance. Amen.
Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening it gives me great pleasure to welcome both our superintendent and our assistant superintendent from the Lompoc Unified School District to talk about what's going on at the schools. I think it'll be more good news.
Good evening, Trevor McDonald, Superintendent of Schools. Again, thank you for allowing us an opportunity to come and share some of the good news and introduce the Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Sid Haro. I'm not going to let him share the spotlight tonight, but he does the work behind it. So I have a couple slides, but first I'll just talk about some things happening that are of interest, I think, to everybody. As you know or may not know, we have two unions that are represented in our district, Teachers Union, CSEA, and we've settled agreement with CSEA, 4% raise, and that's an off-schedule raise, so that's not incurring every year. It's a one-time 4%. With the teachers, obviously, it's behind closed doors, but I think we're close to settling also. And in addition, we have administrators within the district. They're not anywhere in California. They're not represented as a union. They can organize, but they're not a union. But what happens is normally they have a me too. So whatever the unions get, they also get. So we've given our administrators one-time 4%. So what the positive about this is our adults in the system are finally seeing a raise after many years of not only take-backs, furloughs. That when we take furloughs, obviously, like anybody else, you don't work, you don't get paid. Take-backs, step and column, none of those happen. So it's a positive, and I think it's always it's an upper versus a downer when the adults in the system are continuously moving forward, especially in comparison to the rest of the state, rest of the county. So that's a positive, and the reason for that, as you've seen, is, and I think I shared last time, this for the first time in the history of California, a complete different funding model that was adopted in January by the state board. And we'll share more next time. We'll walk you through it a little piece by piece, and a lot of you will have an opportunity to engage in a process of feedback to us, not in this forum, but in other forums, on kind of your thoughts, your concerns, where you feel like money should be spent, because that's essentially the new model. Now, there's also pieces of it, and I shared last time, that go specifically for subgroups. So one subgroup, of course, is English learners. We have to spend a specific amount of money on the English learners, and we have to show how it's working, and if it isn't working, how are we going to adjust our course to make it work. So all this is positive for California and for Lompoc, that we're getting more money, obviously, than we had in the past. We're finally getting money because the state the last few years was withholding it, so now they're bringing it back. And again, positive, because when we have adults that are excited in the system, kids are excited, community's excited, it has a significant trickle effect. So we're excited about that. Now, on the flip side of that is all this new money coming in, and I say all of it in a little tongue-in-cheek, because it's not, we still feel like, as advocates for kids, we're still underfunded, but that's not, we can't solve that problem. So what we can't do with that money is facilities. So we've been approached quite a bit saying, the facilities are in tough shape. The money coming in is earmarked directly for those subgroups that it's earmarked for, or direct instruction. That can pay for people to instruct, that can pay for materials, but if we have broken windows just like all of you in the city, that's coming right out of the general fund. If we're upgrading any sort of facilities or just general maintenance, it's coming out of the general fund. So that's of importance to know, because in Lompoc, we have, most of the schools were built in the 60s, and over time, just by nature, deferred maintenance, if you think of a house that was built in the 60s, now let's funnel in, 750 kids plus about 100 adults and numerous parents every single, for 182 days a year, things get worn out pretty quick. So a facility study was done last year, and we have about a $90 to $95 million need assessment over the next 5 years. Now, I think that sounds more dramatic than it really may be. Of course, infrastructure stuff, plumbing, electricity, that stuff is, unfortunately, we have to take care of it, but we don't see it. We're also really interested in, how do our schools look? Are they approachable for kids? Do we as adults and kids feel comfortable, not just safe, is it exciting to come there? Does it feel like a place that, wow, this is of importance? And I think you all know we have some schools that just image-wise say, wow, this is a business setting and this looks really good. And then we have some schools that have some challenges on just visual. So we're really working hard to create a holistic environment for these kids to say, from the second they step on, yep, this is business, this is exciting, to the second they leave and everything in between. So we're excited about that, and I think it's exciting for the city to really rally behind that, because that's a key piece. We also have, which we'll share with you next time in a little bit on the PowerPoint, some great partnerships with Hancock, with the Workforce Investment Board, with some outside agencies that we feel is going to really directly impact our kids, and not only directly impact our kids, directly impact local economy, society right here. So that's really exciting. So look forward to us settling with the teachers and moving forward in a real positive direction. And again, as you all know, when there is money, the conversations are a little bit easier. So it's an exciting time, and we're really looking forward to it. So I'm going to walk you through some slides here. And I gave this is essentially the state of the district. Do I have a clicker here? Okay, thanks. State of the district, I gave this in December. So obviously there's more happening since then, but I think I came here in December, so I wanted to make sure I filled all of you in. Okay, we talked about leadership. We know and we believe leadership matters. So, and you all know, if you've had kids or we all went to school, those places that were thriving, while we all had great teachers, we also know it can be directly linked back. There was a great principal at those schools. Number one impact on student learning is, of course, a dynamite teacher. Number two is a quality leader. So these are just some, when we got here, we said we're going to explicitly work with the leaders and do the best we can to get them up to speed to be the best leaders they can possibly be. Because believe it or not, in California and all over, folks get in those roles. They may have not had the training. They may not be that comfortable in those roles. And if you, just a quick scenario, say you have 750 kids, you have 45 teachers, you have 25 other staff members, so you have 65 adults on campus plus 735 kids, you're making a lot of decisions very quickly throughout the day. A lot of them, at the end of the day, they're not of magnitude decisions. They're important, but there's also decisions through the day that are very important, and as you all know, kids are easy to work with. Adults are the difficult, can be difficult. So we really have engaged in some significant training with our leaders, and not just our principals, our assistant principals, and also coaches, which are teachers, teacher leaders. So we believe that we also have a responsibility to build this pipeline of leadership so that if folks transition in and out, we're ready. We're not scrambling. So just a couple highlights up there. At a September 1, we do coaching-based supervision. So we talk about when we're working with teachers, it's not a deficit model. We're not there to catch them on what they're not doing right. We're there to build upon what they're doing well and help them fill in their gaps. So it's a very different model than probably a lot of us are used to. Principal comes in and says, you did A, B, and C wrong. We're going to really focus on, well, you did A, B, and C right. What do you think you could work on? And as we know, a lot of times they'll give us the feedback we need, and we can build upon that. So again, I'm giving you these. We have monthly forums that will cover a variety of topics. So for example, on October 23rd, I'll highlight their emotional intelligence. So kind of a buzzword right now, but when we're talking about emotional intelligence, we're talking about how do you interact in different situations? How do you take information that's given to you and create a positive about it, and create an environment when you're working with adults that is comfortable? We're not making anybody feel uncomfortable, because at the end of the day, every single adult in the system has the same goal. It's student achievement and thriving kids. So really working with our adults to continue to push that. Here's a piece that we do with our coaching leaders. So these are teachers who are in the field. These are really our diamonds in the district. These folks are working with their peers on a daily basis, helping them to improve their practice. So this takes a real special person to be able to, essentially, they're colleagues of teachers. They're not the supervisor. They really have no teeth at the end of the day for observation or anything. They're there strictly to coach, and I'm here to help you get better. So what we've done is we're helping those coaches with their skills and really building upon their strengths. So for example, a highlight video observation and processing. This is, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I'm a big sports guy, and sports played a huge role in my life. Well, we know in athletics, you play the game, you then sit down and watch, what did you do right, how can you improve, how did the team improve? Same thing in our world of instruction. we're looking at quality teaching practices and really breaking that down. What did that teacher do? How is that teacher engaging individual kids? What could that teacher have done better? So we'll take a 10-minute video clip and really process that and talk about it for a good 50, 60 minutes. And it's a phenomenal learning experience, and one that if we're not explicit about in the school system, it won't happen. It just doesn't, time catches up and that doesn't happen. So that's a real highlight. Okay. I touched upon our principals, our coaching leaders, and this is the Ed Center. So these are the folks at the district office, mostly made up of classified, but there's also certificated management there. I happen to live in that place. The assistant superintendents are there, directors, and same thing with the Ed Center folks. So we're really trying to help them just build upon their strengths, and where there are some gaps, trying to help them, give them some tools to better management. So, for example, time management. When you're working in a district office as a support person, it can be a nightmare because there's a numerous things coming at you. Well, if you can learn to time manage that, it seems easy, but it's a difficult task. So we're really working with all of our leaders, giving them the tools to just become better, more efficient, and higher achieving adults. Again, I said it last time, not for me, not for the assistant Sup Haro, not for the Board of Education, but for kids, because we know, especially from the district office Ed Center, we're a support group. We don't operate independently. We are a support to the schools, the teachers, and the principals. Another highlight, we do teacher common minimum day. So this is where kids are not in school, or they're in school for half the day. And, you know, in times, especially the last few years when budgets have been so tough, these are some of the first things that go, because it costs money, and it just is one of the things that go, which is unfortunate in every district. So we wanted to bring them back, and we wanted to bring them back with force, because this allows teachers to come together. And you can see in September we did a reflection, prior year's work. What was working well, and where do we feel like there are some gaps that we can help fill in? And then down to October, video observation and processing. So we talked about we do that with our leaders. We're able to do that with large groups of teachers. And then also action planning, next steps, because that's a piece of our world that if we're not really intentional about, it just doesn't happen. So we're really proud to have these common minimum days and use them in a meaningful manner. Again, another certificated staff development day. You see it again. On this one now, we went from large group stuff all the way down to individual and site action planning time. So we give them half a day back at their site, planning with their individual departments, their individual grades. And obviously our expectation is there's an outcome there. You come out of that with a plan for the next 6 to 8 weeks, how you're going to improve whatever you agreed upon. Again, instructional coaches, same type of just really strengthening their existing set of skills and hopefully opening windows to develop more of their skills. I'm going to same type of thing. Now I'm going to shift a little to a couple major initiatives that we've not necessarily brought on, because both of these were here, but again, I'm going to go back to that when times are so lean and these supplemental programs and supplemental stuff, for lack of a better word, just do not get the attention that they deserve, and that's unfortunate, but again, that's out of the sphere of our influence. What we can influence is what we're doing now, what we will do tomorrow. So one of them I talked about last time is Imagine Learning, and I would encourage you to get on there, click around a little. It's a phenomenal web-based program that is designed to, again, fill in gaps that students may have. Originally designed for English learners to really speed up the process of acquiring the English language, but it's of course morphed into a bigger product that can really significantly help any struggling reader, any struggling student with vocabulary, which those go hand in hand. If their vocabulary is struggling, they're a struggling reader. And we've implemented this. We're talking about students served 644, and in the last few years we've had maybe 20, so we've significantly upped that. We have it at 7 sites, and it's designed where students go in for X amount of time during the day. Again, it's a supplement, so it doesn't overtake the core. But a student may work on it for 20 to 30 minutes a day, and they progress in levels. So we're seeing some significant improvement in students. And as you all know, I don't have to tell you, this generation of students, we have to embrace the technology piece, and we have to get very creative, because that's their median, one of their medians of learning. So when we can put them on a computer, and it's phenomenal graphics, we're seeing kids totally focused, locked in. Again, a short period of time. We wouldn't put them on all day, but 20 to 30 minutes a day. And just some preliminary, and this was as of December, school vocabulary report. And we just pulled one. We get numerous reports from this. But as you can see, we're talking about accuracy at grade level. So this is vocabulary. When we started, those numbers were in the 10%, 11% from, say, September. This comes in December. These students are performing 90, 91, 92, and that's at their grade level. So that's a significant improvement. And what we see when students are progressing on their reading, their vocabulary is going to come a little quicker, but we also see if their vocabulary stalls, they don't improve. So again, we'll share some more data with you next time, but just a quick sample of some great things happening. Power reading we talked about last time. We have 458 students served, 4 schools, and VMS is the only one with a full implemented program, and we have it spots throughout, but currently 77% of students are making expected or significant progress. So this program is a little different. It's not just meant for the student that's behind. Everybody can pick this up. So a student that's a few years ahead can still pick this up and make significant gains here. So we are working with the United Way of Lompoc and with Power Reading, and Power Reading, the company is Reading Plus, to talk about a whole district initiative, K-12, actually pre-K-12, to where we would offer this to every single person that comes in contact with our district, including parents. So they would have the ability to log on. This is a web-based, so anywhere they have the internet, and they can either work with their kid, work with themselves, get an understanding of the program, anything in between. So we'll keep you posted on that, because it's a significant. We would be, with this company, the only one in the U.S. that has an entire district-wide, including parents, and then branching out to community. So really excited about Reading Plus. Again, a supplement to the core, but a real phenomenal computer-based program. And the last one, just a quick, I think the top one that's not there is me standing here and the Assistant Sup Haro. Really, our communication and our outreach, we know we can't do it without you. And there will be times that obviously community needs to step up and really support schools, and then there's times where communities and us, we support them from the back seat. But we have to have strong relationships and strong partnerships to ensure these kids are getting what they need, getting the quality education they deserve, and then being able to be successful citizens. So a couple of highlights there. We're working with Alan Hancock on numerous initiatives, but just one of them to kind of pique your interest is we are, through the direction of Assistant Sup Haro, working with Hancock to create a pathway, a career pathway for those students who may be a little more advanced or may be ready to push through a little quicker than some, to where a partnership, we wouldn't be the first in the United States, but it's still really cutting edge, partnering with Hancock to then create, when these students graduate from Lompoc, they already have an AA degree. So they wouldn't go to Hancock, they'd be ready to jump right into a year 3 of a university. Now, obviously, that's going to take a lot of fleshing out, because we know, having worked at the university level and been a part of it, it's, you know, there's a reason why most people go when you're 18. I mean, there's a maturity aspect to that too. So we have to be mindful of that, and we will. But we also know there's students now that get through our system that the last couple of years they're taking courses just to kind of take courses to plow through, where now we can add meaningful courses to where they get an AA leaving us and they're ready to go directly to university or wherever they may be. So that's exciting, because we know and you all know this, if our students have some sort of secondary education, some sort of training, we have a chance as a society. If they don't, it makes it more difficult. It makes it more difficult for the individual, it makes it more difficult for families, and of course it makes it more difficult for communities. So we're excited about that. Another one a few of you are on is the Community Connection Group, and we really value the input from the community, we value the input from individuals, and we want to learn from it. So we're going to continue to reach out, we're going to continue to challenge ourselves, and allow individuals and groups to challenge what we're doing, because I think it's important, and also giving us the opportunity to really share the great things that are happening. So look forward to continuing the conversation, and we'll have a little more for you to chew on next time. I'll take any questions, and if they're difficult, I'm gonna pass them on to Mr. Haro.
Councilmember Humdahl?
Yeah, I've got one, and I say, since I sat on the school board in 1968 to 72, a lot of changes are happening. My dad was on it before, when they built most of all the schools. The one thing that problem that came on later on, the state of California kept coming and telling us how to do business. My understanding, they have now kind of started to back off and let the school board, let the school set the direction.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that hurt us more than anything else, is when the state tried to tell the school districts.
Yeah, good. That's a good question. So if those of you that follow politics know, Governor Brown will forever be indebted to the unions. I mean, that's the nature of his gig, and that's the deal. And for us, how that plays out is school districts are heavily unionized. I mean, 95% of it, or 95% of the folks are union. So those usually would go hand in hand. Now, this new model that he is essentially the backbone of, says, okay, local control agencies, local boards, we're going to allow you to figure out how to use the money. There are some caveats to that, because of course there's strings attached. One, when I talked about that money going to English learners, it's really specific. You have to spend it A, B, and C, and you have to line that if you're using this money, how is that affecting the student outcome? But for the most part, exactly like you said, a total different change, where the state used to say you have to spend A, B, and C, all of your money, now saying, okay, board, you can adopt how you're going to spend it, and you have the ability to adjust. So I'm glad you surfaced that. That's a significant change, and where I see it, I'm excited about it, I'm a fan of it. As you all know, it could also, if people aren't minding the store, board member, superintendent, this thing, and staff, this thing could go south really quick. So, and we'll see that in the state. I mean, it's just the nature of it. So, well, the state will have to intervene, and that's how it is. But I think it all rooted from Governor Brown wanting to of course, unions were pushing to say, give us local control, and we can do a good job, and we totally agree. So more so, and that's why we're going to be, the process will be more transparent to communities, that you all have now, you've always had a voice, but there's a much more significant voice, because now it's controlling a large amount of money going to kids. So yeah, that's a great point.
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. I just wanted to take the time to say thank you very much for coming. This is tremendous value for me, because I know a lot of the questions that I used to get when I first started on council was related in one way or another to academic achievement, students, schools, teachers, and I never had an answer. So what this is allowing me to do is sort of start those conversations again, and be able to communicate about what you're doing, and know what's going on. I mean, I'm sure we know how many thousands of students the school district services. So I'm a product of Lompoc Unified. So it's really great, and I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Great, absolutely. And we'll continue to break down a little bit more some data, some student achievement, because I think it's important that all community knows where students really are, because what I've found, and this isn't unique to Lompoc, this is typical in a lot of districts. When we say how are the kids doing, most of the time we get the answer, well, they're doing well. Or somebody says, well, my kids are doing good, but we serve 10,000 kids, and we have a significant number of kids that are 2, 3, 4 grades behind, and we know that over a long period of time is a very difficult task for kids to get caught up. So I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll continue to bring data to really inform all of you folks, so we can, again, we're all here for the same cause. We want those students to achieve and thrive. So thank you.
Yeah, from my standpoint, I'm particularly excited about how hard you're working with the Reading Plus program, because, as you know, the Mayor's Ball supports that, and
right.
We've become zealots, if you will. And you guys have definitely carried it, not to the next level, but 2 or 3 levels after that. So great job there, and we'll see great things for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you. And we are saying, if anything we're going to take on in the district, we're going to do it 100 miles an hour, and we're going to hold people accountable. And when we're talking about holding people accountable, our outside partnerships, because a lot of times, again, any municipality for an outside partnership, it can be big money, in the sense you have a contract with a governmental agency. There's usually so much red tape that by the time they get to you, it can be challenging. What we're doing, and what Assistant Superintendent Harrell is doing, is just like with Reading Plus. We meet weekly. We talk about what's going well, where are the gaps, how are we going to fill those in, let's have an action plan. And again, it's significant work on the adult side, but we signed up to do this, and we want to do it impacting kids. So, and again, thank you for the support in that program, because that's a phenomenal program and a benefit to the kids.
Well, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your input, and I don't know how I'm going to top that when I come to your place.
Yeah, you can do it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, and now we're going to have the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Motorsports Committee of the Lompoc Valley Parks Recreation and Pool Foundation, except before we do that, I think are you going to do a little presentation to us and tell us where you're at?
Could I just, if I could have a moment just to do a little clarification, because I think there might have been some confusion on the item coming onto the agenda at the relatively late hour that it did, and I wanted to explain that if I can. Very quickly, it was late on our final day of production for the agenda on Friday, and I'd asked Lori if she would help to add this item on, because it came to my understanding. I had planned to put it on the agenda, and it was brought to my attention I had missed it on the first draft of the agenda, and so I had asked her to help me to add it on, hence the late addition. It also subsequently became to my attention that my understanding had been that this council had seen the final version of the agreement. It came to my understanding that what you had seen was a substantively final version of agreement that had, from the last time it was presented for your consideration, had some minor additions that were made or amendments that were made, I think, based upon your contribution of thought. And those things have been incorporated and now have been verified by the city attorney that what we have as the final version is what you had reviewed, approved, amended, and now is in its final form, and that's what we're presenting here. So my apologies once again. I'm sorry I'm going to get to some meeting where I don't have to apologize for something, but for right now, my apologies for the confusion on all that. But and I'll make sure you have copies and that the public has available copies of the final agreement, which is substantially what you've already seen. Thank you.
Tag? Well, it's back to you because you're the guy doing the signing. But did you guys from the motorsports have a little presentation to tell us what you've been up to first? I know you got a couple of exciting things. No, we want to see if we like what you're going to present, and then we'll decide if we're going to sign. Then we'll sign.
All right. Well, good evening, councilmen, members of the staff, and interested members of the community. It's nice to see our new members of the staff. I haven't had the opportunity to meet or work with them, but I look forward to it. My name is Carl Creel. I'm the chairman of the Motorsports Committee. Our project is just one of the projects under the Lompoc Valley Park Rec and Pool Foundation, which is probably one of the most active nonprofits in the community. And I think our project particularly is probably the most ambitious from a cost and, economic impact standpoint. So I know the main purpose is to sign the MOU tonight, but I do have a short presentation about our progress and what we've been doing. First off, I want to say that most of the community is aware that we've gotten a grant with the state of California, which was applied for with the city and the committee, and we received the grant of almost $1 million for the project. Now, along with that, we had another operational grant that we applied for to run the kids park, and the kids park in itself is kind of a unique deal that once it was approved, it was built in just 3 days and has been operating efficiently since that time. And so what we did was applied for a continuing operational grant, and it was applied for effective yesterday, and the press release was sent out today. It'll be on the website, the Kids Motor Park websites, and it should be in the Record and other newspapers in the area. Basically, I'll read it real quick, and it just says, Lompoc Valley Motorsports Committee has submitted an application to the California State Parks OHV Division for a continuing ground operations grant. This grant request is a continued operational funding for the Kids Moto Fun Park at River Park in Lompoc. The park operates most every weekend, Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Kids Park provides the young riders of the community a safe and educational riding experience. The grant will provide funding for the park from July 1 of 2014 to July 1 of 2015. Public comment can be made on the California State Parks OHV Division website at info@parks.ca.gov. So anyway, that is sent out, and our administrative assistant, Michelle Tognassini, has labored intensively with the grant from the very beginning with the assistance of Teresa Galvin of the staff, and we appreciate all the work that she's put into it. So it's a big task. Now, the next thing in our progress, which I consider huge, most people don't know anything about it yet, but as part of the grant process, having recycled goods in the creation of this park is a huge point gathering item. So we have had K-rails donated to us, we've had fencing donated to us, and we're holding all this. And some of the bigger expenses for the project would be lighting and sound systems, timing systems, and bleachers, etc. So anyway, during a meeting sometime in November of last year, I got a call from a man, Mr. Brad Faria. He lives up in Roanoke Park, which is near Santa Rosa, and he had been referred to us by the International Hot Rod Association. And he said that he had bleachers that were available if we wanted them. And as it turns out, Monroe Catholic High School, can we start that now? Monroe Catholic High School in Hayward, California, is a private school, and they were going to completely refurbish their sports facility. And Mr. Faria, which is an alumni of the school, asked them for the bleachers, instead of just demolishing them and throwing them away, he asked if he could have them and donate them, and they were totally agreeable with it. So this is the school. It's a very, very nice school, private school, and they were very helpful and very agreeable in the whole process. When we went up and looked at the bleachers, this is Mr. Faria who called me and who participated. We checked them out, and it was amazing that this is probably all the bleachers we'll need for our project, I think, in the long run. Two complete sections of bleachers from both sides of the football stadium, and we were overwhelmed to get the donation. But then came the reality of how we get it and how do we get it down here. So it became a logistical exercise that I know I wasn't ready for, but as a team we pulled together and made it work. So one of the main issues was insurance. We couldn't find liability insurance coverage for our volunteers, which was a big issue. And finally, the school graciously accepted the responsibility and provided the insurance for us, so we can't thank them enough. Anyway, the committee called for volunteers to go up and actually start disassembling, and we had worked on trucking, and the River Bottom Boys here in Lompoc, which I think everybody knows, actually arranged the trucking for us. And the first day we were to start on this was February 16th, a Sunday, and so I anticipated a few people showing up to help out, but as it turned out, we had 16 volunteers, and we started working on it immediately. Now this shows pretty much what we're working with. This is the largest section, 15 rows high, approximately 150 feet long. That's the largest section. It's quite a lot of seating, and it's quite a overwhelming task when you look at disassembling it and transporting it. But we tore into it that Sunday. We had 16 workers show up, and as work started, we were we became a machine. It was awesome. Everybody that worked on it put their all into it. Mr. Faria, who, like I said, is an alumni of the school, took it upon himself to supervise. He's done this project before, and he stayed with us through the entire process, which was almost a week. He was in Hayward working on this. Anyway, the team of people we had, committee members and people from the business community that took the time out of their private lives to come up and help us disassemble and transport this. And as you can see, it's not an easy task. This is some pretty heavy stuff. We're talking steel, 2x8s, 2x6s of anywhere from 6 to 20 some feet long. But with Mr. Faria's guidance, we tore into it, and we made pretty short work of it the first day. In fact, we were almost half done with the major portion the first day. Even the school was amazed. But like I said, this is an example of the community pulling together. It's just an amazing example of teamwork. None of these people were paid to do this. They came and took of their time and gave us their labor and their expertise. and some hard work here. There's my co-chair, Mr. Schuyler, who took care of the volunteer rosters to track the hours that everyone put into this, which is a big item for the grant. Volunteer hours are matched. Every volunteer hour actually pencils out to about $22 towards the matching funds of the grant, which was huge for us. And there's Randy from Santa Barbara Motorsports. Him and his son and stepson helped us the first day, and like I said, we got a lot done. There's Brandon Matsey. And there's Killer. Carl Duran.
That's the end.
Anyway, this is the first truckload as we're loading it, and you start to see the immensity of the amount of goods that we got out of this. It's unbelievable. It turned out to be 2 full truckloads, 2 trips to get it to Lompoc. And that's the first truck ready to leave. There's the site after it's been torn down. And here's our group. This doesn't include everybody that helped us. This was taken the last day, and some of the people were only able to work the first day, but it was an amazing team of people pulling together. I'm really proud to be associated with these folks, members of the community that work hard at the drop of a hat for something for the community. And that's Tom Alcott from the school waving goodbye to his bleachers. So here they are in Lompoc. We're storing some of them at Jim Mosby's property, and we're going to be storing some at the airport, hopefully. A big task, loading and unloading. But this is a huge donation for us. I mean, it's a lot of product. This is all the bleachers we should need. So once again, I want to say that this is a huge thing for this project. It shows we're making progress, that people are offering us the goods and things we need. It's hard to estimate the value of this at this point. I know that the bleachers are going to put into the school in their remodeling is probably going to cost them $150,000. So I'm anticipating that these recycled bleachers are probably worth anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000. And the only cost that we had was the reimbursement for the volunteers' expenses, diesel fuel, room and board, and fuel for them. So it's a big deal for us, and I'm really thankful to be involved with such a good group. So that's what we've been doing. I'm really thankful to an awful lot of people. Like I said, this project couldn't have happened without a lot of people just offering their time. The first person I called and asked for assistance was John McFarlane from Emirates. He graciously offered hard hats, safety glasses, gloves, and then the River Bottom Boys contacted Lions Trucking. They agreed to do all the trucking for just costs. And so I'll just go down the list. Sunbelt Equipment Rentals helped us immensely. ACECO, RJ, Ron Johnson Construction, Smitty's Towing, Heavy Duty Cycles, Cook's Erectors, B&J Trucking, Allied Fence, Santa Barbara Motorsports, the Pirates Guild, River Bottom Boys, Master Repair, and Graphic Systems here in Lompoc has been immensely helpful to us. They've given us visibility, and they've stepped up whenever we needed anything. And I want to thank Kelly Kennedy, who helped me put together the slide presentation, taking of her own time. I appreciate it. So anyway, I can't thank everybody enough. This is a big deal for us. So that's what we've been doing, and the next step naturally is to get the MOU signed and get moving forward with the actual process of getting through the environmental and getting this project done. So if we're ready.
Councilmember Lingle, you have a question?
Yeah. Carl, very impressive. I'm sure you're better than I am I'm good at taking things apart, but putting these back together,
Yes.
So how are you going to do it? Did you videotape it, or do you have, like when I take apart my thing, I put A and A and B and B?
I have hundreds of pictures, and it's a pretty basic construction plan. We looked at it ahead of time and saw that it's the supports are just two pieces tied together, and it just goes on down the line. It was built by a professional bleacher company. It's been up for a number of years, and it's solid as a rock. If we assemble it in the same way, it's, from an engineering standpoint, it's perfectly safe. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, bleachers of this type are more solid than the new ones, the aluminum ones. If you walk on them, they kind of bounce and give. These are solid, so I'm really pleased with them. So, yeah, if we assemble them in the original manner, which it's like a erector set. It's the best way I could describe it.
Okay, well, good luck to you.
No problem.
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. Phenomenal. Really, really phenomenal. I think that is what this project is all about, which has been about community involvement from day one. I think I've seen this room full only a few times, and one of them was in support of your project, and I'll always remember that. So this is really great. I'm looking forward to seeing those environmental documents and going from there, so keep up the hard work.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, our project's moving forward, and at our meetings, we continue to have more people come on board. And like I said, the foundation has got a number of groups that are active in the community, so it shows that the foundation, the Park Pool and Rec Foundation, is really trying to help the community be a better place. So I'm looking forward to getting our project done as well as some of these others.
So I just want to throw in one thing, because I know you guys are looking for 6-foot used chain link fence. So if anybody knows where there's 6-foot used chain link fence, I think you only need another 2,000 feet. So
yeah, we probably will.
Not that big a deal.
Well, and I didn't mention, we also got a sound system from the school, and they offered us the lighting, but it was obsolete, so we didn't bother. But it's a big deal. We've got a lot now.
All right, you ready for the golden pen?
Yes, let's do
Chief? And we'll be taking a break after this for just a few minutes, so everybody can come on down. Okay, welcome back. And now we'll have our City Administrator Executive Director status report. Chief?
Thank you very much, Mayor, council members, and good evening to the public at home. First of all, I want to thank Lori for sitting in and doing a fine job on our city clerk duty today. We're happy that Stacy was able to take some time off. And Stacy, if you're at home watching this, turn off the TV. Anyway, exactly. Yeah, I can hear her laughing at home now. Just wanted to give you a quick updates. We met with some folks on the theater. This week we had meetings with I think there's a message coming through. The Northern Santa Barbara County city managers met to discuss transit plans updates with SBCAG. Some interesting insights going on there, and there'll be more information coming in the future, but there are some discussions in general about, and I think for the better, about our transit systems, both our individual and how they interconnect with the regional services that are out there. I was able to attend the Youth Commission meeting, trying to get around to all the committees and commissions, and I did that 2 days apart from also having met with the mayor with some self-identified students who self-identify themselves as future business leaders. And between the Youth Commission and these future business leaders, I just want to tell you that the future of Lompoc is in great hands. There are some bright, talented teens and young adults out there, and if that is indicative of the future of the city and the future's leaders, man, things are going to be great. Things are going to be just fine. I was able to tour some additional city facilities, and some of them circling around for the second or third time. Tap TV Studios, the water treatment plant again, Frick Springs facility, the Anderson Rec Center, Mark's House, and a few other places, and still familiarizing myself with the different processes in different locations. I want to give a quick update and announcement on something related that's kind of exciting. On January 28th of this year, the City of Lompoc was granted a construction permit by the Federal Communications Commission, allowing the creation and operation of a low-power FM radio station here in Lompoc. And you may recall the application process on this. So the station's been assigned the call letters KPEG, and will operate at 100.9 FM. As a TAP TV project, it is anticipated that the TAP TV staff will operate the station in conjunction with its PEG television programming as part of the community outreach mission. So some simulcast going on, and it's just great stuff. One final point, I'm going to ask the chief Chief Ralston, if he will share with us a little information, update on our aggressive panhandling ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, citizens of Lompoc, we have, a short time ago, we implemented the ordinance on the aggressive panhandling. Officers have been out making contact with the panhandlers, and we've seen a marked reduction in the number of panhandlers that are in the city. Especially those that are around some of the shopping centers that have notoriously been identified as problem areas. So we have yet to have to write a citation. Those that we've contacted have been compliant with us, following the rules. We've given them written copies of what some of the bullet points on the ordinance are, and they've been trying to adhere to those. The most notable one is the one in front of McDonald's. He's standing on the sidewalk. The ordinance reads that he has to be 5 feet off of the edge of the driveway there, away from a vehicle, but he can be there because of First Amendment rights. So he has been compliant, staying that 5-foot distance away. He's probably gotten less money or donations there because of that, and that's, the intent is to discourage him, to make it not lucrative for him to be there, and he'll go away eventually. But along with that, we came up with some posters. The Central Coast Collaboration on Homelessness we've been working together with this committee, with many different stakeholders in the city on this issue of homelessness, and we came up with an art design for posters to be able to distribute around the city. Councilmember Costa and myself and several other members have been involved in this. The title is Smart Change, Not Spare Change, and it says, together we can break the cycle of panhandling, help provide smart change by supporting local agencies that provide food, shelter, health care, and job training in our community. And then it has the police department phone number where someone can call and get information. We have these in English and in Spanish, and we are distributing them at the police station. They can be picked up there. If you have a business and you need one or several of these, we can deliver them to your business anytime. Make a phone call to us. And we've also had a few citizens in our community that have been going out to the businesses and delivering these around, especially the Albertson shopping centers, north end of the city. So they are out there. We've got plenty more to distribute, and again, English and Spanish. So we just encourage that our citizens would give change to instead of giving it to the panhandler, give that change to the groups such as the Good Samaritan Shelter, Salvation Army, other groups that can use that money directly to help support the homeless population in Lompoc. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, Chief. Anything else?
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, oral communications. This is your opportunity to talk to us for 5 minutes about anything. So if you're here to talk, come on down.
First, I'd like to thank the police chief. He's walking out, but Chief, I can thank him on Thursday. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Karen Appledorn, a resident and constituent, and I see that you're getting ready tonight for the annual report on the general plan, but what Mr. Weimiller doesn't know is there's been several problems over the years with specific reports, and I specifically brought up one on August 20th, 2013 meeting on the codes enforcement. It was on the, excuse me. Here's this chart. This is the last page. Steve Boggs and Mr. Pannoni signed it and turned it in to a meeting, a city council meeting. There are all sorts of discrepancies. The numbers do not match. I know you understand accounting. The numbers don't match. I find so many different discrepancies on this document. So you can look that up. It's on your computer. Any citizen can look that up. So then I'm looking at the program summary, and I see that you've got numbers again using in your report from this document, but your numbers don't match up. For example, in this code enforcement for tonight, it says 576 new cases, 574. You have all these different numbers, but then if you go to something else, again, the numbers are different. So basically, I'm sorry, I don't feel well. I've had a really bad migraine all day. In addition to that, on your, there's I can't print the whole thing. You have 81 page and 56 page reports, and they're not given off. First, some reports say that it's funded by CDBG funds. Then this one tonight says it's citywide funds and CDBG funds, but everywhere it's all different. And then on this report that was turned in August 20th, it says that CDBG funds were used, it has these high numbers, but then we go to 330 in these other reports. So the numbers are just scattered all over the place, just with the code enforcement, just with this bond money we're talking about. If I can't find all these documents and match all these figures, and you're new here again, and you're testing, I understand that, for employees to gather and present you with information, how can anyone in this city trust the rest of the report? I ask that you wait to vote on this tonight and let citizens and Mr. Weimiller, I'd be happy to discuss it with you and show you what my concerns are. But when I see all these discrepancies, oh, we're using city funds. No, we're not. We're using CDBG funds. or it's this many discrepancies. No, it's not this many. It's this many enforcement code violations. No, it's not. Some are resolved, but you don't go into why they're resolved. And then you don't have carryover balances. None of the numbers match. They cannot be matched. That's improper. That's an unaudited report, and I do hope, I can't find it, if we've been audited by CPA, that you accepted audited CPA books when you came into office, because those are the rules for accounting. I'd like to know what the CPA firm is, so I'd like to call and get that information. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And who's next?
Mayor Lynn, council members, citizens of Lompoc. My name is Bob Schrum, and I'm chairman of the Lompoc Valley Fallen Warriors Memorial Committee to build a memorial at Beatty Park to honor the warriors of our local community who give their life in the line of duty. This is a poster for a fundraiser dinner that we're going to be having. And for those of you that don't have 2010 vision, a copy of it is outside on the table. And we'll also be posting a copy of this, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, in the City Hall so that people that are coming can see it. Give you some information. It's called the Red and White and Blue Dinner Dance, and it's going to be Saturday, March the 22nd. And we're going to have cocktails at 6 and dinner at 7, and it's going to be at the Elks Lodge. The dinner will be prime rib or chicken cordon bleu, and for those that have an aversion to meat, we are going to have a vegetarian option available as well. For those of you that like a lively night, we're going to have a silent and a live auction, and I am just amazed at the outpouring from the merchants and the people of Lompoc with some of the most fantastic auction items I can't believe. You got to come and see it. And I know, and bring your checkbook. You're gonna really want to get some of these bargains. They're going to be great. You're going to dance afterwards to a 14-piece swing band called the Riptide Dance Band. And I don't know if anyone remembers the Dick Clark Band. Well, the Dick Clark Band has morphed into the Riptide Band, and a lot of them are the same members. I think they also play for the Philharmonic. You know, if you play an instrument in this town, and you're in lots of bands. So, but it's 14-piece swing band, and some of the arrangements were written by Glenn Miller, because the guy who leads the band has a mentor, a doctor in music someplace, that played with Glenn Miller and got a lot of his arrangements and brought them into the band. So you're going to get some really original music. It's going to be beautiful. The tickets are going to be $50, and the proceeds from the dinner will help jumpstart our effort to build a memorial in Beatty Park to recognize Lompoc Valley residents of the armed forces who died in the line of duty. It will provide a place of solitude for those who wish to pay respect and to reflect on the sacrifices of our local warriors. And I spend a lot of time up at Beatty Park. I walk there quite a bit with my buddy Andy. And there's a lot of people who use that park to just sit on the benches, look out across the city, and we have a wonderful city. And I want to grace it with a memorial. Tickets will be available from Lori Lane or myself, or the Chamber of Commerce has got tickets available. And I happen to have some here. And if anyone is desperate to buy one tonight, I can sell you one. You can also look on the Fallen Warriors website. Just Google Fallen Warriors, Lompoc Valley Fallen Warriors, and you'll get the website. And there's a telephone number there. You can call Michelle and get one from her. So with that, I have less than a minute, And Mayor Lynn, if you don't mind, I would like to distribute some 3x5 cards that have information regarding this, and I'll use my 48 seconds to do
Pass them
that.
out, absolutely. And thank you for all your work on this, Bob. You're making a lot of people's dreams come true. Man, you didn't have to say that twice to her. She was out there at it. No. Thanks, Bob. I'll be there. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Lori.
Marilyn, I can attest, I saw them this morning at Southside, and I have to give it away, one of the auction items was donated by Vargas Jewelers, and man, oh man, it is a beautiful piece of jewelry. So take your spouse with you, because I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic evening.
Yes, Conception Tile is donating some granite stuff, like a Lazy Susan and some countertops for bathrooms and vanity. The list goes on and on. And again, my thanks to the community for the outpouring of support.
Thanks, Bob. Okay. Anyone else like to speak to us during oral communications?
Pam Wall, local resident. I wasn't going to say anything, but this has really been bothering me. This is not a statement about the motorsports park. These people have worked very hard, are very committed to this park. Lots of volunteer hours. You saw the hard work that they're willing to put in. And I'm not for or against the motorsport park. I think the environmental inspection report will play into this further. My problem with this is when this came to the City Council in the first presentation back in February, in a special meeting, February 26, 2013, and they gave their presentation, it was made clear this was not to use city funds or minimal amount of city funds. And when it came forward in November to a discussion of the MOU, the motorsports park people discussed the MOU and what their concerns is and what they would like to see changed in that, and that was fine. It was after their issues were resolved that the mayor spoke up and basically asked the City Council to approve a blank check on the general funds. The City Council did not do that. They were astute enough to realize that there was no amount of money attached to that, so they wouldn't have known what they were agreeing to. But the city attorney brought that back as a revision for the MOU, as this issue could be resolved between the foundation, the subcommittee of the motorsports park, and the city. So tonight, and I was very surprised to see this on as a presentation, that the signing was going to be done tonight for the MOU, because we've never seen the final of the MOU. And I'll remind the City Council, when you sign an MOU with anybody, as our representatives, you are committing us to this memorandum of understanding. And we don't even get to look at it and see what revisions were put in there or how this came back in this MOU and who is paying for what in the cleanup out there. Ron Fink raised the question in one of his commentaries, I think it was the one after the November meeting, about a question of conflict of interest with the mayor in this foundation. And I think a lot of us have a question about that as we watch how things go on. Seems to me you should have a real distinct separation, but yet we hear, you brought up the question, tell them about all the meetings that you've had. Well, why are you involved in all the meetings that they've had behind the scenes? I think in the best interest of everybody, including the mayor and the foundation, the mayor should recuse himself from any future business brought by that foundation to this City Council for discussion and voting. There's lots of suspicion. If that peeled back that curtain, who would be standing there pulling the strings? And again tonight, I have to question that. So, food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let me put two things to rest. I'm not even a member of the foundation anymore just because that question has been raised, and I don't routinely attend their meetings. So I think if I think about it, I've been to 2 in the last year. So hopefully that helps. I'd be happy to talk to you about it after. Anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we'll close oral communication and we'll come back to the consent calendar. And I think there's one other question that wasn't answered there. City Attorney, with regard to the MOU tonight, could you address how we got from where we were to the MOU that we signed tonight and what the process was from the City Attorney's office?
On November 19th, you were presented a MOU, and you looked at that, and you approved it with some modifications. I then made those modifications that you wanted to include in the MOU, and we sent that to the Foundation Committee for them to review to be sure that I got right what they heard as well as what I heard. We gave that to them probably the next week after that meeting, and we actually sent it to them more than once because we weren't hearing anything back, and because we didn't hear anything back, there were no changes made, and so the document that you approved on the 19th with those amendments that I provided is what was signed tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
Yeah. I want to thank Ms. Wall for standing up and saying that, because I have to agree with her. It was sort of at the last minute that this was put on. Our city administrators explained to us very well how it happened and why it happened. I feel better after hearing the explanation that what was signed tonight was exactly what we discussed in November. So in essence, I feel like I know that what was signed tonight was what we approved in November. It would have been best, and I agree, it would have been best if the MOU had been brought forward, let the public see the final version, let us see a printed final version. But we did approve it in November. Nothing of essence had changed, so I was happy with that. But I want to thank you for coming up and stating that point.
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. City Attorney, have you discussed with the mayor or with anybody else the potential for a conflict of interest?
If I may, through the mayor, actually, when the mayor was first elected, I actually had a conversation with him, if it's okay with you, if I had a conversation with him, because I was concerned because I understood his involvement with the foundation, and there's several reasons why that couldn't continue, because I knew the foundation probably was going to have contracts with the city, and there's a government code section 1090 that prohibits that activity if a member of the council is also a member of the foundation. So he actually resigned from the foundation because of that.
And so because of that, I just wanted to be clear for the public, there's
no conflict of interest. I'm not going to address any kind of perception that people may have, but there's no legal conflict of interest.
Thank you.
And actually, after a year, because of these questions, even though I was a charter member of the foundation, I dropped my membership, which was kind of sad. But do what you got to do. Okay. Any other questions on this? Nope. Okay. Any other oral communications? Nope. Close the oral communications. We'll come back to the consent calendar. This evening we have 3 items. Number 1, we have approval of the minutes of the Lompoc City Council regular meeting of February 4th. We have approval of expenditures, a voucher register for $510,000 and a voucher register for $609,000. And item number 3, adoption of ordinance 160014, amending subsection D.2 of section 15.08.020 of the Lompoc Municipal Code regarding fire sprinklers in existing non-residential buildings. And is there an item any council member wants to pull at this time? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
And a second.
Second.
And is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, could we vote, please? Yeah, you got to hit the magic button. There we go. Lori's having trouble. There we go. We got them all. All right. And that passes 5-0. Next one, we have appointments of council, a council nominee to the Beautification Commission. That'll be Councilmember Lingle's nomination. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to find it right now. 4. Okay, it is my pleasure to nominate Elisa Silvis to the Beautification Commission.
And I'd be happy to second that. Is there any, and is it Elisa here this evening? Don't know. Okay. Is there any discussion on that? And seeing none, could we vote, please? Nope. Signal when you're ready. All right. And now pull back the cloud. There we go. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. And now council appointments to the Economic Development Committee, but first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, audience, and viewers. Teresa Gallivan, Economic Development Director, Assistant City Administrator. And before we get into the staff report this evening, I'd like to take a minute and acknowledge that the completion of this first term of appointments to the Economic Development Committee is an important benchmark. And I really can't let this moment pass without thanking all of the inaugural members of the Economic Development Committee. Your willingness to serve on a board that had no strategic plan, no reputation, a whole lot to prove, and a newcomer leading the way was truly pioneering. So thank you. Your receptiveness to new ideas, your candid input and hard work, your desire to make Lompoc a better place to live, work, and play has garnered the group many accomplishments and well-deserved accolades. I've been very fortunate to work with each of you, and you're a very special group to me. So thank you for all your dedication and support. Tonight we want to especially thank our first chair, Steve Pepe, and two very special members who are moving on to dedicate their time to other worthwhile causes in the city of Lompoc, and that's Dulcie Sin and Julie Minicucci. So if they would please join us. And I'm sorry Julie couldn't be here this evening, but if Dulcie could, and Steve. Steve, under his leadership, he has set the group on a path for success, instilled a culture of idea sharing and honest discussion, and encouraged members to work on projects they're passionate about. So thank you, Steve.
No flowers.
And Dulcie, thank you as well for all of your hard work and dedication.
I would just add that, this council had a concept of an economic development committee, and we were absolutely positive, right, that we would get good things done. And then we went out and selected all the members of the committee and gave them our hopes, wishes, and desires, and you have exceeded our expectations. So we thank each and every one of you, both who are retiring this evening, but all of you that continue to work. You've made truly an impact on our community, and we thank you.
Okay, so the first leaders of this committee have laid a strong foundation for those that are coming in to join the group, and so they will also have continued success. So I'd like to turn over to the staff report now, and we recommend that City Council appoint members to fill 5 vacancies on the committee. 2 appointments we recommend come from the current associate members on the committee, and 3 from the attached slate of interested applicants. We also have 4 members that would like to renew their terms for 4 years, so that is also proposed. As well as one of our current members, Dawn Thomas, would like to become an associate member and vacate her position as a full member. So we also recommend that. And we also ask that we dedicate 1 associate member position to Visit Lompoc, to a member of the Visit Lompoc, Inc. That is the nonprofit tourism improvement district that has formed, and as we previously discussed at a council meeting, that we would have a connection with that group, and they would serve on our board as someone would always be a permanent member on the committee, just as the CEO of the chamber is a permanent member of the committee, and we're well aligned. Also, we ask that you adopt the amended Economic Development Committee description to include the appointment of the Visit Lompoc member as a permanent associate member. So I've attached to the staff report a list of current membership status, so you can see each council member's appointments and who would like to renew on your appointments, and where you need to appoint a new member. And then you can see at the bottom of that chart the current associate members, which would like to be promoted to full membership status. Then today we distributed a slate of interested candidates because the application period actually closed yesterday at 5 p.m., so we got those to you today. And you can see we had quite a few folks in the community that were interested in joining our committee, which we're very pleased with. So I'd like to, at this time, ask our Economic Development Committee Chair and past Chair to come and give some input on the slate of applicants that are before you this evening. Thank you.
My name is Janelle Osborne. I'm the Economic Development Chair for the Economic Development Committee, and I have the distinct pleasure of following Steve Pepe, who has set the bar quite high. So pardon me if I fail at any moment because I'm following the master. Mayor, council members, staff, and community members, first I'd like to thank you for considering our input on who we'd like to recommend for the committee. In fact, we were thrilled to have 8 applicants, and we want them all. So here's our plan. First, please promote our associate members to full. Carol Newsom and Margaret Lau have been vital in their past appointment as associate members and have risen above the non-voting position to contribute by doing work and organizing different parts of different projects we have going, and have stepped right in as if they were full-fledged members. So when the positions became open, we asked them if they were interested, and they are. So given they have proven themselves already and are willing to commit to additional time with us, we really want to put that weight on them of having that voting and being able to see full fruition of the projects they've already taken on. Secondly, we have 3 open positions after that, and while there's tons of applicants, 2 of the applicants stand out for us in that they would help us with our diversity. We're looking for members of the Hispanic business community to contribute, and we have 2 applicants, Chuck Marquez, or Charles Marquez, who works with Paychecks, and he would have a great sense of what's going on with salary levels, companies hiring, who's coming into town, and that would be a great contribution, as well as all of the contacts he already has with the contracts within Paychecks, and that would be a huge insight for the committee. And then we have Cecilia Ramos, and we are looking to recruit those individuals that are millennials. So she is a native, born and raised in Lompoc, gone off and gotten her education, has come back, works at UCSB in the Education Abroad program, and is very interested in seeing her beloved hometown grow and change, and has expressed interest. So we would really like to see her come on board and contribute that young, vital energy to moving many of these projects forward. Finally, we agree with the extension of Don Palmerville, Maria Hall, Jeremy Ball, and Tom Davidson. They have been with us for 2 years and want to continue with us, and they have had huge contributions. And Dawn Thomas's request to step down to associate is, we're thrilled that she still wants to be involved, but based on what's going on, she would rather not have the full responsibility, and we agree to that. And then the new position of the VLI Association chair. We support Justin Barrick. It is also VLI's board that has suggested Justin. Justin got his application in and is very interested and has expressed interest in the EDC even before the VLI was created. So this is a perfect fit for him. And what we finally ask is that while we only ask for the 3 associate member positions that we have, we would suggest that the final 4 applicants that you don't appoint as full members, we would love to recruit them as associate members and expand our associate list and allow them to become members anyway, because this is where some of our positions are being filled from. Their dedication, their attendance, their getting up to speed has made it easier to transition into full memberships because they've shown they have the interest in the dedication. So an associate membership increase and having additional applicants fill those positions would be ideal for us. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Steve?
Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the public, Steve Pepe. I'm a member of the Economic Development Committee, and I support Janelle's recommendations. I'd like to add a few other facts for your consideration. In the 2 years that we've been in operation, we've had 7 departures. That's been caused by people who left town for various reasons. Their terms expired, there were changes in their work schedule, and in 1 or 2 instances the committee didn't meet their expectations. So I think it's reasonable to assume that we will continue to have vacancies, and that's why it's important to have these associate positions filled. Also, you've heard me on numerous times here and elsewhere request that we increase our diversity. And the diversity I talk about is twofold. One is industry, and the other is ethnicity. On industry, we still don't have anybody from the restaurant business. The hotels, we've had partial representation. So I'm very encouraged that the VLI will now take an active role in this. And more small business. And on ethnicity, we've again have, as Janelle mentioned, no Hispanics for the last 2 years. I've also been here and elsewhere and made several pleas for people to apply without a lot of results. Until recently, we now have an abundance of riches. We have 8 very well qualified people. They're very diverse. Janelle has gone through the positions with you, but Margaret Lau is our only Asian, and Carol Newsom's our only African American, so we're moving them up to the committee. It helps us. She's gone through Chuck Marquez and Cecilia Ramos, which would be our first 2 Hispanics, and we now have somebody from VLI, so we are closing in on it. All we have left to try and find and have somebody from the restaurant business. And I would again encourage that we ask the other people to serve as associates, and if they are willing to do that, as indicated, I would anticipate in the next 2 years that as people's lives change, businesses move, and things occur, we'll have some openings. And it's good to have as much diversity as we can, and there's a lot of experience in these 8 applicants, which all of it will be to our benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve? Do you have any idea why we're having trouble recruiting someone from the restaurant business?
Well, first issue is you don't have a lot of restaurants in town. Well, we don't. I mean, quite.
Well, that's what you're supposed to be doing, though, Steve.
Well, we're working on it. I mean, that's one of the issues, and the other issues are that many of the likely candidates are occupied on Rotary or other items where they just don't have enough time to put in on this. And then we've tried to talk to the people at Applebee's, and they're still relatively new to the community, so I think it's going to take a while before we can move in there. But those are and then you've had some restaurants that have closed and some restaurants that have sold. So we really do need to not only have more restaurants, but we need to get some folks from the restaurant industry on our committee.
Okay, thanks.
Teresa, do you have anything else?
If Mayor, Council, you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Does staff support increasing the number of associate members?
That's fine. We could amend the Economic Development Committee general functions and bring that back to you as consent if council approves that amendment.
Okay. And if our goal is to bring somebody from the restaurant industry in, perhaps to the suggestion that was made, instead of adding 4 positions, we add 5, and that would give us the ability to go hunt somebody down from the restaurant industry and get them in as an associate member. Does that work for you? See, I see the past and current chairman nodding up and down in the affirmative direction. So, Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Mayor Lynn. I have a question for Ms. Gallivan, and I'm really going to ask you to be candidly honest with me here. Is there a point when the committee could just get too big and too difficult to manage?
Thank you for asking. Actually, when I first started and we were talking about the formation of the committee, I know that council at that time actually was looking at a 25-member committee, and I did express concerns about having a committee that large. Previously, in my work experience, when you have committees that large, it is a full-time job just to manage the committee and the subcommittees and all their agendas and activities. So that has been a concern. The one reason that I am concurring with the recommendation of the committee this evening is that it is associate members, so we are not taking on additional voting members. The voting members are still the core of our 15-member voting members, and the associate members are only called upon to vote if we don't have a quorum. So in that regard, and we still have the same number of initiatives in our structuring, so we're not creating more meetings or more agendas than we currently have.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see if we can kind of work our way through this. And if you all bear with me, and maybe we'll form this up as one motion, I'll ask each of you in turn to make your nominations. With regard to the addition of 4 or 5 associate members, I'd like everybody's opinion on that, please.
5 is fine with me.
Fine.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
That's 4 members plus 1 VLI associate?
No, that's 4 plus 1 that they haven't recruited yet from the restaurant, because they didn't have anybody here from restaurants, so they would be chasing down 1 more person.
I would just say don't put the cart before the horse. I think that, if they come along and they want to apply and commit, we'll do it at that time. But for now, let's not worry about that.
Well, there's going to have to be an amendment, so that's why I don't want to do it twice, because they're going to have to come back to us with a staff report for the amendment.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, one other thing I wanted to clarify is we'll approach these folks that have applied if they would like to be associate members. The fact is maybe they at that level are not interested. So that is one thing we will have to ask them. So if you have an amount, and we put an amount in there, not to exceed, or I can...
Here we go. How about that solution, not to exceed 5? Okay, everybody good with that? All right, got that one handled. With regard to the current associate members, we would all agree that the Hotel Association would have have a permanent position as the Chamber of Commerce does, and that the one their board recommended, Justin Barrick, would hold that position. Is everybody good with that?
As an associate member?
As an associate member?
Yes.
For the Hotel Association?
Yeah.
Yep, everybody's good with that. Okay, got that one. And the recommendation by the committee that Don Thomas be moved to associate member, everybody good with that one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then we come to my nominations. So in terms of my nominations, I will renew Tom Davidson, and I will nominate Wendy Cook to replace Colin Welch, because that was for the hotel the hotel side. So those would be my nominations. And then Councilmember Starbuck, you got a renewal.
I will go ahead and renew Don Palmerville.
Okay, Councilmember Homdahl, you have a renewal and a vacancy.
Yeah, on the vacancy, I'm going to bring in Margaret Lowe, because that's Hancock College. We need that person in it all the time, because Rick has a hard time making the meeting, so I want to have her there.
And with your renewal?
Maria Hall.
Okay. And Councilmember Lingle? You have one vacancy.
For my vacancy, I'm nominating Carol Newsom.
Okay, and Councilmember Costa, you have one renewal and
two vacancies.
two vacancies.
I'll nominate the renewal of Jeremy Ball, and for the vacancies, this is very difficult for me because we have some amazing applicants. But I'll be nominating Tim Harrington and Michelle Hodap.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll ask the
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just want to clarify that our associate members, there will be a total of 1, 2, 3,
could be as many as 8.
7 up to 8, you're right. Thank you.
Correct. Mhm. Everybody's got that in their mind? Okay.
That is, if we take the existing
If they all-
three,
if they all say yes.
moving Don Thomas to an associate member, having Justin as the VLI member, and the chamber CEO.
Right.
Those were the 3 positions we have, and the Economic Development Committee has suggested that we add all the others, if they're interested, that have applied to become associate members. So that would be Chuck or Charles Marquez, Cecilia Ramos, Gilda, and Jerry Ann. And then if we want to include a restaurant representative.
Correct. And you'll return to us with that information.
But we said not to exceed 5. Are we now?
Not to exceed 5 more. So a total of 8.
Oh, not to exceed 5 additional.
Correct.
Is that how, is that,
And that's what we all nodded up and down to.
oh, I thought it was 5 total. My apologies for the confusion.
Okay.
That's good, we're clarifying. Yeah.
Okay, so just from the Economic Development Committee side, I'm sorry, is that how you understood it as well? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's see. And City Attorney, do I need to reread all these names, or can I just make a motion to?
As long as the clerk feels like she has it down, we're okay.
Okay. So I hereby nominate all of the people that each individual council member recommended, and I think that gets it, doesn't it? And the staff will return to us with the number of associate members and the appropriate change to the Economic Development Committee.
If I may.
Yes.
Did you not want to just change the number 3 to 8 on page 2 of the?
You put me in the right place and I'll change anything.
On the second page of membership of where it says 3 associate members, and then a few lines down after that it says one of the 3 associate members, just change that number to 8.
Up to 8?
Yeah, up to 8.
I don't see it, but if you can.
I'm sorry, are you referring to the general description or the recommended?
The general functions.
General functions? Sure, we can amend the general functions to include up to 8 associate members. Yes, that's what we need to do.
And then you don't need to bring it back.
If we don't need to bring it back, that's fine.
That'd be even better.
So that's approved by, okay.
So I therefore add to my motion what he said. And I'd be looking for a second, or more than 1 second.
I'll second.
Okay. And is there any discussion? Did I miss anybody's point on this? All right. Then could we go ahead and vote, please? And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, next we have.
Let me bring up something now that we've got the people part of the Economic Development Committee. Under the general functions, Second Amendment, I have a question. Item 3, it says, now this is for the Economic Development Committee, clearly identify the roles of the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Lompoc in the economic development efforts and the cross-cooperation in these efforts. Is that part of the chamber strategic plan that the city, or is this something that's separate, or just a little clarification on that one line. I just wanted to know what we're doing there.
Sure. Certainly, to clearly identify the roles, the contract we have with the chamber is one of the ways in which we identify the role that they have in the city's economic development efforts, and tourism is primarily that. So that is one very clear definition between the chamber is taking on a large role in our tourism efforts. But by being part of the committee, we're able to always coordinate those efforts as well, and with his chamber's periodic reports to council as well.
Any other questions? City Clerk, you have to push cancel. Ta-da. Okay, now we'll move to item number 6, a public hearing for adoption of the 2013 California Fire Code. Chief? You are going to read the whole thing to us, right?
I am.
Good.
I was back there marking the pages. Mr. Mayor, members of council, those of you still watching at home, this item was brought before you at your last meeting where we requested that the legally required public hearing be set and held. The staff report is pretty much the same. The only changes made to the ordinance are those typos that I brought forward to you at the last meeting. I'd be more than happy to read every page in here if you wish. Beginning with...
Okay, are there any questions from staff at this time? Seeing none, we'll open this to public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to talk to us about the fire code? Come on down.
I'm a local resident. I don't really want to talk to you about the fire code, but I would like to say that I attended Councilmember Starbuck's public meeting for people to come in and see what's going on. It was held at the fire department, and the fire chief gave an outstanding presentation for the 5 of us that attended and bothered to come. And that really upsets me. People complain after the fact. They go wild on Facebook with a lot of misinformation, and that's what happened to this. It's what happened to the water and that rate increase. And I would encourage people to get the Lompoc record if you want to know what's going on in your town and participate. You are not going to get that from the Santa Barbara News Press. So it's wise to show up ahead of time and not wait until after the fact and then complain. After listening to this presentation by Chief Ladapow, it was very simplified, and I don't think anybody would have a problem with the fees that have been recommended. And maybe people would like to have a community meeting where they'll actually show up and learn what's going on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Anyone else? Do you walk on water too, Chief?
No, but that just opened a door when you're ready.
Come on down. And no one else for oral communications, right? Seeing no one rise, we'll close that and come back to the chief.
Seeing how that door was open, I received a text while we were sitting here in the meeting. The pump and the water tank has now been installed in the rescue, and they fired it up, and it works like a dream.
Yay! I know you guys are waiting for the hose to make it real for you.
It's already attached.
Okay, good things. Anything else?
Back to the recommendation, I would ask that you consider adopting adopting ordinance 1601, open paren, 14, close paren, to adopt the 2013 California Fire Code.
Okay, and is there any other question at this time from the council? Nope. Okay, who'd like to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and move the adoption of the ordinance 1601, 14, 213 California Fire Code.
And who would be second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Seeing no lights, could we vote, please? And that passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We want to take a break or we want to go move forward? What's your pleasure? Okay. The next item will be a policy discussion and possible action regarding proclamations. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. This item's coming before you because of, I guess, some apparent need for some clarity on what the city and your policy would be in regard to making proclamations. And so the staff is just teeing up, if you will, what the question would be. The bottom line is there are a lot of requests that are received either by the mayor or by any of you as members for proclamations to be made. Some of them have great relevance and are important and vital in their relationship to the existence of Lompoc. And there are some that come with varying stages of irrelevance, if you will, to the city. And so at times, either the mayor or staff may have to sort through and try to, do some determination as to what may make its way to a proclamation, what may not. So one of the concepts is to solidify, if you will, what has been past practice. For instance, our past practice has been in general that the topic of the proclamation should be something or someone specific to Lompoc, its citizens, its culture, origin, association activities, and the like. And the alternative to that is also at times that your practice has been, particularly if it has to do with advocacy for an issue that's out there, that you follow the lead of the League of California Cities, particularly regarding legislative platforms. So the question is now before you is, just to give some guidelines if you want to continue to follow something like that, or you wanted to change, upgrade, morph the approach, and it might be worthwhile to have a more clearly understood policy in regard to how we proceed with proclamations. So that concludes my report at this point, and just hopefully open up the floor for discussion among you on what your pleasure would be on how we do this going forward.
Okay, so since the proclamations largely fall to me, I'll just talk for a minute about what we've done in the past. A lot of the proclamations, and those of you who've been on the council a while, you see the same one year after year on a given date, and they're principally for nonprofit organizations who are doing things in the community, the Rape Crisis Center, on and on, quite a number of them. And then we have recognitions for members of the community for things that they've done. So, for instance, we had the 100th birthday party for Mr. Walt Manfrina, and we did a proclamation for that. And then in some cases, and this is a little different than some other cities, we do proclamations recognizing longtime businesses on their anniversary. And those proclamations tend to focus on what they've done in the community. So it's not really directed so much at the business, but what the business has done for the community. And the last one that comes to mind on that was Sunset Chevrolet, and there's another one in process right now for Vargas Jewelers for their 40th year in Lompoc. The things that we have not done in the past, and I just actually saved them for a week and a half, so I'll just share with you things that came in that we wouldn't do. So this one is from the city of Doral, Florida, asking us to join them. They have a proclamation supporting the Venezuelan Democratic Movement. One from the 2014 Centennial Celebration honoring the first ecclesiastical jurisdiction of Church of God in Christ in California, which happens to be in Los Angeles. I don't know why they sent it to us. We had two requests recently. One was the 50th anniversary of the Lompoc Vandenberg branch of the American Association of University Women, which I went ahead with. And the other one was to recognize Equal Pay Day. And the next one was the Love Foundation announces the 11th annual Global Love Day. And they have quite a number of proclamations from other cities. According to them, they had over 400. And then the last one, and they sent me something really heavy, was the House of Homelessness, Inc. in Texas, and they were looking for one dealing with the federal minimum wage and homelessness. And so those are the ones that I didn't do in the last 2 weeks. I didn't stop and count them all, but we probably do 50 to 60 proclamations a year now, and they do take some time. You know, I write quite a few of them, Laura writes the rest, and then we go back and forth with them to smooth them out and make sure they're good and readable, and then I sit and practice and read them so that when I go deliver them, not counting, mispronouncing Hauk, I can get them right. So I'm not in favor of changing it. Just for purposes of discussion, I was forwarded a copy of the Carlsbad City Proclamation Guidelines by Terry, and I thought they were really good. And there's enough here for the audience, so if you could pass those along. Those might be kind of a discussion point, and I did annotate 2 changes in that recognize what we currently do. And that's something for discussion. Who wants to be first? Councilmember Starbuck.
You know, I'm going to say that for years, the way we've done proclamations has appeared to work. I've never heard anything pro-con. I mean, it's worked. We had Mr. White come and ask for a proclamation, and we've sidelined on that. Do I think that Joe White should receive a proclamation? Yes. Do I think we should go into a great big rewrite in a policy manual? No, I really think that just based, I received this email also from Mr. Hammonds. It's simple. It's really a common sense decision with the city administrator, the admin, and the mayor. I think that we should just kind of go very simple on this and go.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know which one of you was next. Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Councilmember Starbuck. I'm glad you agree. I think that, to me, there was no question that is a case where we would give a proclamation. A Year Without War isn't a Texas-based or Florida-based organization sending an email asking for a proclamation. This was an organization started by somebody within our own community and is being fostered, 45 miles away. So we're supportive of our community, and I wanted to show that support to this organization. It's not political in the sense that it's not breaking down political barriers, Republican versus Democrat. It's nothing like that. It's very easy to support, in my opinion. So without question, I think that we should do a proclamation for Mr. White and supporting A Year Without War. To the proclamation guidelines, Mr. Mayor, I also reviewed the city of Carlsbad, and I do think this is actually a really great example because it does talk about what they will not be issued for, such as for-profit businesses as an advertisement or commercial promotion, matters of political or religious nature, events or organizations with no direct relationship to the city of Lompoc, for example. And again, there is here a direct nexus and relationship with what we're discussing. Or campaigns or events contrary to city policies. And I think it's easy to integrate the league because I think that is very important, the language about positions taken by the league. But I think that, to make it clear, I think that this is a great example. My only question is under guidelines, there is a bullet that says the mayor's office reserves the right to approve or decline any proclamation request and to edit the drafted material for final wording. I think that that's kind of how it's been done so far, and that's what kind of brought it to this issue. So I would almost eliminate that bullet point. But otherwise, I think that this is a good example if this is where we want to go. Thank you.
Let me throw one thing in, Bob, it's okay. One of the reasons for the edit is we sometimes get things that are 4 pages long, and our rule is that it has to go on 1 page. In the case of Mr. Manfrina, he had amazing accomplishments, but I don't want to spend 20 minutes reading a proclamation, so our rule has always been to get it down. And then the other thing that kind of occurs, and when I edit things, I don't edit the content, I edit phraseology, because we all write and read in a different way. And if you write it and I have to read it, I'm going to fall over it, and I don't think that represents the city well, so I may change an and or a the, or just to get the flow of it right. But I don't edit for content. I guess that's the point.
I think editing is acceptable, absolutely.
Sorry, Rob. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. I agree with both Councilmember Starbuck, Councilmember Costa, and in addition to the editing, if you look at our staff report, unfortunately the public doesn't have it right there, but under background, the last sentence, it says a proclamation should be used to determine whether the proclamation topic should be brought to the attention of the City Council for consideration. Then under discussion, again, the last sentence, it says, considered by the City Council. Under the same discussion, item number 1, first sentence, the topic of proclamation is something or someone specific to Lompoc. Okay, so Mr. White's was specific to Lompoc, or involved in Lompoc, but the other ones, these never have been brought to the City Council. Even our staff report says these should be brought to the City Council for consideration. Now, I agree with Mr. Starbuck that the process we've had has been working in general over the years. What I'd like to see our policy do is somehow involve the City Council on what is rejected. And my suggestion would be that we don't want to take a bunch of council time, but maybe the 15, 20 or so that you get a week or a month that you reject, maybe just we get a one-page memo. These are the proclamations that have been rejected this week or last week. And then if something comes to one of our attention saying, wait a minute, why was that rejected? That makes a lot of sense to me. Then we can bring it to the council as a agendized item, and we as a council then could decide whether it should have been rejected, instead of leaving it just to the discretion of the mayor. Because this is not a mayor's proclamation, it's not a mayor's resolution, it's a city proclamation, a city resolution. So I want to see the council more involved in what is accepted and what is rejected. And I think just a one page of what is being rejected to us would satisfy me, and I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that. But other than that, I looked at the city of Carlsbad. Again, I agree with it, it's good. I'd reword the editing a little bit, but somehow include informing the council of what is rejected, so we have the opportunity then to bring it back if necessary. That'd be my suggestion. And again, with Mr. White's proclamation, his request for a proclamation, I think it fits with what we have been doing, and it definitely fits in what the city of Carlsbad is doing. So I'd like to see us get that thing signed tonight.
City Administrator.
I just neglected to mention that in preparation for all possible outcomes, we did prepare a proclamation that is ready to go on the Year Without War. Again, if the outcome of your discussion was going to lead that this was an appropriate proclamation to make, we are prepared for that as well.
And I did make one edit in it because the date was 2013, so I changed it to 2014. Councilmember Holmdahl.
It's interesting. I've sat on so many commissions. I've never looked at a proclamation until it was read, and I don't think I have no problem with what we've had done in the past, and I don't see any chance of changing anything. So I mean, it's something that happens, and I think what we've seen over the last 12, 14, 15, or 30 years that I've been looking at these proclamations, I've never had one I've disagreed with.
And let me say, that I read all of them that I've gotten, Bob, just so you understand. And there's only one here that was locally submitted, and actually was a submission for 2, so I'll come to that in a minute. But the ones from out of town, I don't even talk to the city administrator about. There's one coming up for the Campfire Girls. Well, it was submitted by their county organization, but it's on behalf of the Lompoc chapter. So I proceeded with that one. If I have one that I questioned and Patrick and I haven't had any of those yet, but Laurel and I had conversations on several in the past. Councilman Costa.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Councilmember Lingle, I understand where you're going with that, but I think that logistically that's a challenge because we don't know what emails and requests come into the mayor's inbox, which I think a lot of these do. I mean, if we get official requests from the city and there's documentation submitted to the city or faxed to the city clerk, city administrator, I think that'd be a lot easier to track. But I almost feel like it will naturally develop if somebody doesn't get a proclamation that wants one, just like Mr. White then approached us afterward and said, you know, no, this is really important to me. I notice it's not happening. I think that will naturally actually happen if people are feeling like they want a proclamation and it's not happening. You know, and then additionally, though, if we have a really clear set of guidelines, it really shouldn't be, there isn't too much wiggle room. It kind of, it's a lot more black and white, which would then make it clearer for the mayor to go along these guidelines and say yes or no, essentially, to a proclamation that's forwarded directly to him. Now, again, we may get a personal request as well, and I don't know if in here we need to discuss the fact that we no longer are the ones to receive that, but actually in the city of Carlsbad, just as an example, I know there's many out there, in order to get a proclamation, you actually have to send it directly to the city clerk's office. It doesn't, coming to us, it's fine, it's just sort of an information piece. It would have to go directly to the city clerk to even take that next step of consideration, and maybe that's the way we want to do it, is then start funneling them that way. And then between the city clerk's office and the mayor's office and the city administrator, they can decide if it meets the guidelines or not. So I understand what you're saying by that, but I think if we use properly written policy, I think we can avoid the need for that from the mayor. And I'm not even sure you said from the mayor, actually. So if we're still interested in that, we can do that, but we would actually have to ask, I think, from the city staff side. The other thing I wanted to point out was on this example legislation, I believe it limits to one per year. Mr. Mayor, did you see that as well? I think it actually limits. An organization can request only one proclamation annually. And like you said, there was an organization that requested two, so we would probably.
It was an individual that requested two proclamations for two different subjects.
Okay, so in that case,
and one I went with, and the other one I didn't go with, and I'll come back to that in a minute.
Okay, but just something to point out if we feel like one's sufficient. And again, it says an organization. So maybe an organization has multiple causes throughout the year, multiple needs for proclamation. We might want to be a little bit flexible with that.
And that's never been an issue, really. So we could take it out as far as I'm concerned. Councilmember Lingle.
Yeah, I just want to address Councilmember Humdahl's thing. And I agree with you, Councilmember Humdahl, that I've never seen a proclamation that I didn't agree with either. But have you ever seen a proclamation that was not written? Have you ever seen some that were not written that you would have liked to have seen?
No, because unless a person brings it to us, we never know that they didn't have it done. So, I mean, if they really think it needs to be done, then it could bring it to the council.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Currently, they're not brought to the council. Only finalized proclamations are brought to the council. We state right in our staff report here that they're brought to the council. We don't do that. What we do is only finalized proclamations we get to see. So, yes, you've been on the council many years, but you could not tell anyone that there are proclamations that were legitimate that had been denied.
Well, what I'm getting at, if somebody brings one in here and it was denied, then they could bring it to the council and say, this is the reason why I think it should be a proclamation. We've never had that. This is the first time in the 25, 30 years I've sat on different commissions that anybody's ever brought one back that said they should have one. So however you want to do it.
Okay, well, whatever the council decides, but I still stand by my fact. I don't think it would be cumbersome. I think, how many do we get a week, Mr. Mayor?
The ones I read represent a week and a half.
And how many were there?
7.
Oh, so, I mean, what does it take for one of our staff assistants to give us a one-page thing? These were the, nothing may ever come of it. but at least we would know the council then is involved in it. Right now, the council is not involved in proclamations or resolutions, and that's stated are in the policy that we don't have.
I think a simpler solution might be that I would just put them all in a folder and leave it on the council table, and if I didn't issue it, you guys would just look in there.
That would be acceptable.
Yeah.
I think we're, Mayor, sorry, Councilmember Starbuck, were you next?
I was just going to throw out maybe something that would be fairly easy to do, but we could possibly include it in the city administrator's report we get every week, that the following proclamations are being prepared, or I don't know if it's, you know.
I think it'd just be easier to put it in a file because we have plenty to do already.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I would just want to make sure I understand what the suggestion was regarding putting in a file. Putting in a file if you issue it, or putting in a file if you don't?
I'll put all the turned down ones in a file on the council table, and I'll leave them in there for a month. Each time people come into the office, they can look in the file, and if there's one they want to talk about, they can pull it out.
And it would come to the council on an agenda?
They would come and talk to me about it, presumably, and we would review whether it's within the guidelines that we're going to agree to, assuming we agree to some guidelines.
On an agenda?
On an agenda. Well, no, it wouldn't necessarily have to come on an agenda if they convinced me that I was wrong and I should have read the guidelines.
Well, we can't talk about.
How many of you are going to convince you?
Only one.
Right, therein lies
I just want to caution that's a slippery slope.
I understand that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, Councilmember Costa. I think if one of us brings it up, though, it should be, then I believe it should be brought on an agenda, because then it is a council decision instead of your decision, my decision.
Yeah, that's fine.
I agree, just put the denied ones on the council table in there. We have a chance to look at them. Chances are nothing will ever come up, but if it does, we'll agendize it, bring it to the council for discussion.
And generally, they have a fair amount of time in them, so the ones that come kind of later, somebody's 100th birthday or something like that, those are the ones that come in on Friday and the birthday's on Monday. So we move a little faster on those.
They weren't very sure if Walt was going to be around that long, serious.
And it was good he was. Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. I think the challenge I'm having here is I can tell we're not used to creating policy. We've been so specific on issues that sometimes when we create policy, it's kind of fun to hear the interactions. I think what's happening is that in creating a formal policy, I think you're having something that could be perceived to just sort of be happening in the council room, right, between a council member and the mayor maybe, or maybe just the mayor, or maybe, a council member. And my direction would be, if it is going with the proper information and there are time deadlines associated with these things, to the office of the city clerk, there would be a public paper trail, essentially, that somebody could say, here is public proof that I submitted this, and there is proof that it was accepted or denied, versus I sent an email, or the mayor got something mailed to him and he put it in a folder in the back room that nobody else saw but the other council members. Does that make sense? Where then there could be sort of an issue with that. I think it'd be much easier to have everything go through the city clerk's office, or through the office who currently works on these proclamations already. And they would be the one to issue that in a public manner, not just in a folder in the council room. Thank you.
Well, we certainly have made something pretty complicated out of something that was pretty simple. I serve at you guys' pleasure. I have probably done 200 proclamations and we have one question. Get to that in a minute. What I am most concerned about is whatever policy we establish, I can follow. So as an example, I received a request for 2 proclamations from someone locally, and one of them was the proclamation for the 50th anniversary of the Lompoc Vandenberg branch of the American Association of University Women, to which I said yes. And the other one was a recognition of Equal Pay Day, to which I said no, because again, it was something I perceived to be more political. So if we're going to do Joe's proclamation, Joe White's proclamation, then from my standpoint, we need to do the one for Equal Pay Day. And I don't think any of the other ones in here are local, but I would go back and take a quick look just to make sure, because what we do for one person, I strongly believe we need to do for everyone. Okay? And it's going to be some more work. I also probably don't support having the city clerk stuck with this. What we have now has worked pretty well, which is they come to me or they come to Laura, and you've all brought me one or two. And then if I have a question, I go sit down with the city administrator and, review the guidelines that we've had in the past, which were common practice rather than a written standard. So there's my 5 cents worth. Okay, let's go to oral communications. Who would like to talk to us about this? Come on down.
It's past my bedtime, so. But I'm enjoying it so much here. First off, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to serve on the Economic Development Committee. I know I didn't get to say something earlier when we were being thanked, but what a wonderful opportunity. And I'm sorry that people left, because it was such an honor to serve with so many bright and respectable people in our community and to feel like we were really getting something done. With that said, I'm here tonight to speak about 2020, A Year Without War, Joe White's proclamation. I've known Joe White for a very long time. I've been married to him, I think, since I was 20 years old, and I'm much, much older than that now. And I assure you, his behavior has always caused trouble. And I can see, once again, that has happened in our community. Hopefully not too much trouble. I don't want to move again. No, I'm just kidding about that. And we'll be glad to edit anything down. I know he can be very verbose. Joe White is a very unusual person. For those of you who don't know him, he's a professor of philosophy, chair of the department at Santa Barbara City College, #1 in the nation. As senior faculty, I think he's had a lot to do with that. He's someone who I met when we were in college, and here's someone in those days who was working at least 4 or 5 jobs to put himself through college. I thought he'd be a great catch. Anybody who'd worked that hard to go to classes, I said, he's got to be worth something here. And he has proven to be one of the most tenacious people I have ever met. In July, when he said to me, we're going to start doing this proclamation, I said, oh, I don't know how that'll go, and then it was rejected, and no, he wasn't going to take no for an answer. I have to tell you, the reason that we came to Lompoc with this proclamation first in the nation, in the world, is because this is where 2020, A Year Without War, was dreamed up, and this is where it was launched. The dreaming was on Joe's part. He woke up about 2.5 years ago, and he said to me, I've had a dream, I have an idea, I think that we could do something in the world that would really bring about social change that would be so positive in this world that it will make a difference. And I'm going, okay, dear, what's that? And he told me about the idea, and I said, oh, another peace organization. There are over 1 million peace organizations in this world. He said, no, this isn't about peace. That's way too complicated. This is simply about no war for 1 year. We did it during the Olympics. We called a truce. We do it once a year where we have 1 day without war, and that's been embraced by the Taliban. It's been embraced by our military in Afghanistan, and during that 1 day, so many children were vaccinated. It was such a thrill to read about. So Joe dreamed it, but Joe has trouble using his phone to make things up to date, and he's saying, how do we create a global movement that truly shifts our thinking about what we do during conflict? And luckily, he happened to meet a young man, Josh Wheeler, who is in one of his classes. Now, I've known Josh for many years, graduated from Lompoc High School, was with the Future Business Leaders of America, won a national award to go and defend his web design there. And I knew him because he had raised so much money in the communities over talking to me. And I said, well, how are you liking City College? He says, I love it. And I said, tell me about your professors. He says, oh, you know some people? I know a few people. And he tells me about his math teacher, this teacher, and then he says, oh, but my philosophy teacher. I said, oh, well, who's that? Oh, Professor White. I said, oh, that's interesting. If you really like him, if you hang out long enough, he'll be coming down those stairs with a little laundry here in a minute, and you could say hello to him again. Well, sure enough, they became friends, Josh White being mentored by, Josh Wheeler being mentored by Joe White. And now Josh has graduated from City College and is at UC San Diego, continuing. He was interning with Americom, which is a cutting-edge website development company. They, pro bono, worked with us on developing of the first website. They built it, and now we are looking at taking this. Now we're in 90 countries, 5,000 members, working very hard. It's been a wonderful adventure seeing these two people and all the other young people who are working on this, to see the number of people around the world who are wearing our brand and how this is changing how we think about things. And I would just like to say that I think it's very important for this community to celebrate that. Okay, I'll just finish 2 sentences.
Go ahead and keep talking. You're on a roll.
To celebrate smart, creative, thinking, caring people who come from this place. I want that image out in the world. I want people in this community, in this county, in this nation to know that very great things can come from very humble places, and that's Lompoc. And I really would appreciate this proclamation so that Joe will stop bugging me about it, and that we can move on with this adventure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you let him sleep in, or what happened to him?
He's at UCSB making a presentation to graduates.
Ah, good things. Okay, who else would like to speak to us? Come on down.
I'm Mulligan, still a local resident. And I have to agree with Ashley about the difficulties of setting policy with the city council. But, simplify on this is just fine. I mean, this is once in how long that something has come up that's been turned down. But to have something like this turned down makes you think maybe somebody else should take a look at this. This is a movement that out of Lompoc has gone global. This is something we should be promoting from this town. Humble beginnings, we're noted for a lot of things: highest unemployment, highest poverty, highest obesity in children. This is a very positive thing, and it is not political. I think everybody would enjoy a year without war, particularly now with things heating up everywhere. There's certainly plenty of people that would have done anything for a year without war when their family members and friends and relatives were affected by war. So I encourage you to do this proclamation, get it done. And as far as the policy going forward, keep it simple. And if somebody wants to bring a resolution or proposition to somebody else, they should be able to bring it to the council and have a vote on it. That should not be eliminated by just one person, as this would have been done. Thank you.
Who's next?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Morelle Brooks. I live in Vandenberg Village, and I'm just speaking tonight as a private citizen, not as a member of any group or a board member. I'd like to make a suggestion, and trying to approach this from a positive point of view. Perhaps I thought that the policy was, a group or a person would go to any city council member and say, okay, here's what we would like. And perhaps rather than, making this all come out of the mayor's office, when you vote, you all have one vote. You're all equal voters. So it seems to me if a group felt, they could go to a council member and say, would you give us a proclamation, so that you would all have that opportunity. The mayor, that's a big burden on you, because you have to go and travel around or give all the proclamations. Again, I live in the county, and I know what the county policy is, that, if a proclamation, somebody goes to the particular supervisor, and you can go to a supervisor outside your own district, and then that supervisor has the decision, decides, okay, they will do the proclamation or not. Again, you don't know who's been rejected. If, I know last year, a group that I belonged to, we waited, and we never heard anything. We were waiting for this dated proclamation, and we didn't know what to do that day. And we knew that the county was going to do the proclamation, and I don't think we had 20 members go down in the audience. I think if the policy, maybe what one person thinks is, merits a proclamation might not be what somebody else thinks. But I think as a professional courtesy to each other, maybe, one council member might say, oh, this is a great idea, year without peace, that, somebody might say, I feel very passionately about it. Well, I think as a professional courtesy to each other, if one council member says, okay, I would like to have a proclamation for this, then I think it should be, again, a kind of what you call a professional courtesy, that the council, not that you have to discuss it in front of everybody, but if somebody comes forward and says, I think this is a local group, it kind of meets the criteria that you have now, let that possibly be a way to approach this. And I think you would fill your, sometimes when you do get proclamations for certain people, groups come out, people come out. I think it's a good way to get people down here in a positive sense, that you're recognizing something that's even one of you might think is worthy of recognition. Again, I think that's all I wanted to say. Oh, again, if the policy stays the same, and if there's a decision then not to recognize something, you really should let that particular group know, because I think you will remember, I came down that night and I read the proclamation that the county had given us, because we didn't even know. We had people ready to come down because we just assumed, I guess, that we were going to have the proclamation read, but we never knew. So if you're going to do a policy change, and if there's a rejection, and it is a local group, then perhaps that might be something to do, to make sure that a letter is sent, at least, to say, for some reason, you're not acknowledging it. But I don't see the need for a drastic policy change. But I think that if a person, any one of the five of you, has something that, you think merits public recognition, that should be honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to talk to us on this subject? Last chance. Going, gone. Okay. City Attorney, could you talk for a minute about your favorite slippery slope with regard to how we would do things? My biggest concern, and I think I've said it 3 times, so I'll say it 4, is I don't care what we do. You guys decide how you want this done, and I'm going to do it. And there's no problem with that at all. I will continue to make little minor edits so I can read them. I think you all understand that. I don't change the intent of the proclamation. That's absolutely certain. And frequently what we do is we shrink to fit because we just get too much information. Joe White's is in very small type. So, but I think my one concern is that we apply this equally to everyone, and maybe you can kind of give us a little guidance on how to get from where we are to somewhere, wherever that may be.
The reason that you'd want to be sure that you're doing it even-handedly is just so that you don't have someone raise some concern about being discriminated against. The guidelines that are set out by the City of Carlsbad, I think, would meet that. The guideline or non-written policy that was being followed that's identified in the staff report, I think that guideline would meet that. So I don't see anything in the guideline that's being proposed from Carlsbad or the one that exists that would end up violating that.
Okay. Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. City Administrator, if I recall correctly when I was looking online, the city of Fresno, where you were recently transplanted from, happily so, they actually had an online submittal form, which I think is probably a little ahead of our time, unfortunately. But from what it sounded like, you could actually submit a request to the city clerk or the city council members or the mayor.
Correct. And it was my observation, there are times, just a little brief overview about the form of government. It's a little different there. You have 7 members of a city council and then an elected mayor, and the mayor does not sit on the city council. Of those 8 elected officials, there were times that proclamations were signed by any one of those individual council members or mayor and just brought them forward, and it was a ceremonial act, if you will. There were times that it was signed by all 7 council members. There were times, the last one I was involved with happened to be declaration of a special day there, and it had all 8 elected signatures. So there were ones that worked in tandem and some where, if someone had a particular cause that they individually wanted to support, that elected official had the ability to declare that. And when we read it, rather than being the city is declaring, it was saying, I, council member XYZ, declare this, National Rutabaga Day or whatever it was. So it was a little more, my point was, it was a little more loose in content and filtering of it, because there was a lot more autonomy given on an individual basis, or if it was something that was really representing particularly something more substantive that was going to represent a city position, it was more likely you'd see that across with all signatures attached.
Okay, and then I think they also had a template, so that would be my question for you, Mayor, is, would it be easier for you because you'd essentially say, here's the template, you can't go past a page, so you decide what wording to get it down to a page, or are you okay with having that little bit of flexibility?
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't very good at writing proclamations, looking at what's submitted, so it's probably better if Laura and I hammer them out as we have in the past. And realize that a lot of these are repetitious, so once we get it right the first time, we're just changing dates or a few facts in them going forward.
So I think what I'd be interested in the city administrator doing is taking the information from this evening, including the city of Carlsbad, and including the feedback this evening, and potentially drafting a policy that would then come back to the city council. I think formulating it from scratch right now is a little bit too difficult. But for me, the inclusion I would request is that somebody could make a formal request to the mayor, to council members, or to the city clerk, that, for internal discussion, and then Councilmember Lingle, if it's your request, that there is some response in some way, is recommended, or we will attempt to respond to your request in a period of time.
Let me just insert one thing. Realize that right now, any one of you can ask me for a proclamation, and every one of you have.
Right.
So that's not any different than what we do right now.
Absolutely.
With regard to a rejection notice, yeah, I think that would be good, but only for the ones that are in this area. So when I get one from Doral, Florida, I'm not going to send them an email back and tell them thanks, no thanks. Because I get a lot of those, and those don't get much consideration, frankly.
I understand. I think that that's understandable. So sort of a rejection notice for local requests is sort of, I think, meets what Councilmember Lingle is looking for.
Right. Yeah, if I agree with Councilmember Costa, if we can use this as a template, maybe send it to staff and have them wordsmith it a little bit, bring it back to us, but most of the work is already done. And Councilmember Costa, I'm okay with the mayor just sitting on the council table in our office. the rejected ones, and we can review them or not review them. But that way, I feel that we are at least being involved in it. Rejection letter, I think, for locals is a good idea. Use that. Then my last question is, ready to sign this so Dulcie can go home?
We're still back to my other question.
What's that question?
If we issue this one, then I believe that it opens a different door, and we need to, at least one that's before me now is very similar in nature, and if we approve one, I would feel kind of uncomfortable with the one that
And I think
previously
both
turned
of those
down.
you mentioned, I think they're appropriate. They're both local. So I think those are both fine with me.
Yeah, because it's a local chapter of,
The American University Women.
yeah, right.
No, I issued the one for the university women. The one that I didn't issue was to recognize Equal Pay Day.
But how is the proclamation stated? Is it that there's a local chapter that has started this movement, supports this movement specifically locally in some way?
Yes.
Has done local
Yes,
work
this
to
was-
achieve that?
These were both requested by the AAUW board.
Mr. Mayor, we're sort of moving beyond the point of this agenda item. If we're going to start discussing a specific proclamation, we'd need to put that on the agenda for that specific discussion.
So those, Mr. Mayor, I mean, you use your discretion. If you reject one of them, you put it on our council table. You said you're going to do one of them.
Yes.
Okay. The other one, put on our, if you choose to reject that, put it on our table. We can bring it back. Is that okay? Or you can do both of them at your discretion.
Yeah, well, if we vote in a minute to do that one over there, it creates that other whole problem for me of being fair and equitable. That's
I
kind of where I'm at.
hate to interject again regarding the concern I have with the Brown Act, but what the Brown Act prohibits is outside of a public meeting, a consensus being reached. And I could see someone saying, if all five of you look at or if at least three of you look at the folder and no one brings it up, a consensus has been reached to not bring it up. So if the idea is for the council to be involved with deciding whether or not
Okay.
proclamations are going to go.
Yeah, I will withdraw that request. I understand that. And I think we all agree that the system has been working until Mr. White got involved. So let's just take this policy, wordsmith it, so now we have a policy that we're all comfortable with, and if issues come up again, we'll be back here again for it. But yeah, we'll just leave it the way it is, wordsmith this once. We do have a policy, which we did not have before, and leave it at that. That would be my recommendation. The Carlsbad policy, just words. Yeah.
Well, I think the city staff can go back and do some research of some examples.
Sure.
This is just one example. of
Exactly
many.
right, yeah, just wordsmith something, we don't have to invent the wheel, but at least we want to have a policy, a written policy.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Starbuck.
I'm just wondering if, are we going to go ahead and do this, whereas as part of our council handbook?
I think.
Or is this going to be a policy for staff?
I believe this would be part of our council handbook when we adopt it. Councilmember Homdahl.
Well, I still go back to what I said before, is that the idea, somebody's been doing this for a long time, and if somebody has one that they really want to be brought up that was dropped, they could bring it to the council and say, I would like to have that. And that way, like this one here, 2 years, 1 year without war, is that what it is? Year without war, but that's interesting. And my son has been in Iraq and Afghanistan in the last 2 years. I think there was a war going on out there. So, I mean, he's back now after 18 months and 18 years of it. So the idea that if they wanted to bring it, if they felt they should have it, they could come back to the council because it was rejected. That way, it could be handled in that respect.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion. Councilman Lingle.
Motion on the proclamation or motion on
Let's take them as two separate issues. So we're going to do basically what you said earlier. You can just make it in the form of a motion.
Okay. I move that we send this back to staff and have them come up with a policy based on the example of Carlsbad and doing some research on other cities. But they come back to the council with a policy on proclamations.
Which would be part of our council manual.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And a second.
I'll second.
Okay. That's moved and second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, could we vote, please? That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Mayor Lynn, I do have one quick question.
Sure.
My apologies. City Administrator, I just want to be sure, is there any component that you feel needs to be decided this evening that you have some ambiguity in regards to?
No, but thank you for asking, but I think I've got a pretty good structure in my mind of what you're seeking, so I think I can work from there. And any loose ends to that, we can certainly tighten up when I do return with the more formalized policy in place.
Thank you.
Okay, got that one done. So now, I think it's the desire of this council to issue this proclamation. So let me do it in a way that makes me comfortable.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I would suggest that that proclamation is not on the agenda.
Okay, so I have another approach to this. I'm the mayor and I issue proclamations. And it appears to me that it is the desire of this council based on a previous meeting to issue this proclamation. So outside the guidelines that I have used in the past, I am going to sign and issue this proclamation. And if you say one word, Joseph, I'm going to come down there and smack you. Now, who has the official blue pen? Now, come on, you guys had a blue pen at the table. We got to have the blue pen. We don't sign these with anything else.
I had one stolen earlier.
No, it does not, but you'll hear it in a minute.
It'd be nice to hear what your thing is.
The whole history of the city. I am.
You going to come over here? And...
I'll do it. Yes, please. It's all set up. Just have to look through it and push it. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me. Proclamation 2020, a year without war. Whereas citizens of the city of Lompoc have created and developed a global social movement, presently with thousands of members and visitors from over 90 countries, to make the year 2020 a global year without war. And whereas the city of Lompoc has been closely associated with and a supporter of the United States military service with the operation of Camp Cook since 1941, just north of the city of Lompoc, through the base's present status in 2014 as Vandenberg Air Force Base. And whereas the city of Lompoc has sent its citizens to serve in the U.S. military since the Spanish-American War, including all subsequent wars. And whereas the support of a strong military has been for the purpose of securing a lasting peace. And whereas 2020, a year without war, is focusing a global discussion on the benefits, both capital and human, to saving an estimated $1.3 trillion spent annually by the world's nations on war and its related activities. And whereas communities like Lompoc seek to live in peace with all neighbors, as demonstrated through its global Sister City program with its 5 sister cities. And whereas on August 27, 1928, under the leadership of the U.S. Secretary of State Frank Kellogg, serving in the Hoover administration, he brought nations of the world together to sign the Pact of Peace in Paris, formally outlawing war with no nation subsequently rescinding that law. And whereas 2020, a year without war, has mounted a petition campaign to the United Nations to have the General Assembly of the United Nations designate August 27th as the internationally recognized day of celebration of humanity's step toward eliminating war. And whereas the city of Lompoc has been committed to providing a high quality of life for its citizens, the city of Lompoc encourages members of California's congressional delegation, members of the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors, the California State Assembly, the California State Senate, who represent the citizens of the city of Lompoc, along with the California League of Cities and the National League of Cities, to support 2020, a year without war. Now, therefore, I, John H. Lynn, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, California, recognize 2020, a year without war program and supports its United Nations petition to globally recognize August 27th as the Pact of Paris Day. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Lompoc to be affixed this 4th day of March, 2014.
Thank you very much. I think that this is an honor. It's been an interesting journey, and it will continue. We have a dream, a year without war. We have a plan in place, and we have a deadline, the year 2020. Join us, recruit your friends, and believe that this is possible for a better world. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, moving right along. And now for some real fun, the City of Lompoc 2013 General Plan Annual Report and Progress Status of Implementing the General Plan Policies. Exciting, Lucille.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. We're reviewing a report that is our annual report, a progress status on implementing our general plan policies. The Planning Commission reviewed this report on February 12th and has recommended the council accept it and direct staff to file with the Office of Planning and Research and the Department of Housing and Community Development, as we do on a yearly basis. The report covers a calendar year, January 1st through December 31st of 2013. Sorry, it's late. The status of the general plan, which we know and are very pleased with. On November 19th, the council adopted Phase 1, and we are working towards adopting Phase 2 this year. The basic look at this report is the housing. The state, as we all know, the housing element is the element that is really scrutinized and certified by the state. And we are to report on our RENA numbers, and that for the planning period that is covered by the current RENA numbers, which is January of 07 through June of 2014, we had 516 units that the city had to have property zoned for. And as you will see from the table in your report, we've done an excellent job of even producing the units, even though the time was a slow period. And our report shows that we have 168 units left to construct, and most of them we are going to come close to meeting our numbers, even though we're not required to actually construct them before our next housing element. The language in our report speaks to the progress of encouraging the affordable housing in the community, and we have a section on the general plan implementation measures for each of the elements. the status of what has been accomplished. These are circulated to all the staff members who are responsible for working on those implementation measures and are edited each year for the council's review. So that completes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Who has a question? And by the way, Lucille, would you tell me what you told me earlier about all of the attachments dealing with the individual general plan elements?
Those were all reviewed by staff, and there were not very limited changes because we're focusing on moving forward in our next project year. Mostly we have ongoing progress that is reported, so there's not much change in the way of the implementation plans, really.
So those are basically the ones that came to us last year when we
Pretty
did this the
much.
last time, which caused me to not read them all, I'm happy to say, because I read them all last year. Any questions, Councilmember Lingle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I forget exactly, but I wrote a note to myself. The citizen that got up and spoke concerning the verbiage and the corrections, that, can you address that a little bit? Are we taking care of those problems?
Specifically speaking to the code enforcement, I think some of these reports are based on fiscal year and some are on calendar year. This particular one is based on calendar year. We run numbers every month, and they're reported through the city administrator's weekly report to the council. So you see a running total of the numbers that are currently being the cases, the number of cases that are currently being addressed by the code enforcement officer. So these numbers are consistent with that for the 2013 calendar year.
So the citizen's complaint could be that she was looking at data from different time periods?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure what actual report she was referring to, but I know the CAPER does fiscal year, and this report is on a calendar year, so the numbers would not be exactly the same.
Okay, thank you.
I think the one she was referring to was the CAPER based on the date she quoted. Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you.
Public comment? Anybody want to talk to us about this? Nope. Pam, Will, Jim, you're the last three here. Nope. Okay. Closing public comment, coming back. Any questions or discussion? Okay, I'd accept a motion to, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I move to accept staff recommendations.
And a second, please.
I'll second.
And is there any further discussion? Seeing none, could we vote, please? That passes 5-0. Thank you. Written communications, City Clerk.
No written communications.
Oral communications, your last 2-minute opportunity to talk to us on any subject. Going once, going twice, gone. Council requests, comments, and meeting reports. It has been pointed out to me that I am not treating everyone equally with regard to their council reports. So beginning tonight, we will take turns with who goes first. So I don't think we can flip for it. Heck, I've never gone first. I'll go first. We'll solve this. So on February 20th, we had the SBCAG hearing for unmet transit needs. I'm happy to report that there was no one there speaking about unmet transit needs in the city of Lompoc, so everybody seemed to be happy. There were some issues in Guadalupe and Santa Maria. Also at that meeting, I was appointed again to be the CalCog board member representing SBCAG, and that's the state organization of all of the COGs, and next week I will be at that for a day and a half. I was also appointed to the SBCAG Executive Board. We had our Measure A report. We're kind of under budget and ahead of schedule, so that was good, and I covered some of that with you all previously. I attended the Vandenberg Air Force Base Quarterly Awards. I was at the Rotary Wine Tasting. Bob wasn't, but he sold me the tickets. I think I would sum up by saying there were a huge number of positive comments about the city of Lompoc, about the things this council has done, and also about the implementation by the city staff. Not a single person complained about something, which is pretty amazing considering the number of people I talked to.
That was at the wine tasting?
Yeah.
That's the wine talking.
They're all happy. But I was there at the very beginning when the doors opened, so they shouldn't have been fired up. City administrator covered the future business leaders. That was pretty good. I had a conversation with Andy Figueroa, the president of Lompoc Girls Softball, at their opener at the middle school, and he reaffirmed the things that they are most interested in would be the outfield fence and turf leveling for the outfield at Thompson Park and some level of turf improvement at the LVMS fields because they've had a couple of twisted ankles there. I attended a Festival Association food booth meeting. Things are going well, except they said, please ask the community if any nonprofit would like to put a food booth in for either Flower Festival or Spring Arts. They have vacancies and they're looking for folks. And other food booth folks there said, if somebody wants to come in, we'll help teach them how to do it. So that was a good thing. Let's see. Over the last 2 weeks, I met with 3 prospective businesses, 2 who are currently working to open in Lompoc, and another one that Teresa and I met with that's contemplating opening here. I think we had a positive result from all of them. 2 of them are going down the road, and the third one is, they call back saying, you guys are great, so hopefully we have them too. I also met with Dr. Walters, the president of Hancock College, with regard to the public safety facility, and had a long discussion with him about how to accelerate the program at the public safety facility to bring more people here. He asked for some help, and I carried that message to the Hotel Association meeting today. They formed 4 ad hoc committees of 2 members each. One will be focusing on selecting a contractor to manage their marketing plan. One committee will be working with the wine industry to begin a marketing plan for them and working together there. One committee will be working with Hancock on helping market the police and fire facility. And one will be working with the youth sports groups to get that going. Elizabeth from the Petroleum Education Council will be back in town on the 21st, and we'll be meeting with the hotel group and then separately with Dr. Walters. If any council members would like to set up an appointment to meet with her, she's available in the afternoon and would be happy to speak to any one of you individually and brief you on what's going on. And so there's lots of good news in town, all over the place. Let's see. So we started there. We're going to get on the list. Okay. So Councilmember Holmdahl.
Okay. I did go to a few things. Rotary wine tasting, of course, we had to go to that. And real good turnout. Maybe not as big a crowd, but they did well on finances. That looked out real good. The fire and ice ball, it was real good. The only thing that nobody danced. So, but anyway, oh, did you finally dance? That's good, Bob danced, but I couldn't, the wine got him dancing anyway. And then I was able to make the dedication of the new facility out of Vandenberg Air Force Base. It's going to be the training facility. Dirk was there also. It's going to be quite a facility. And along with that, I had 5 inches of rain at the house, and I had 6 inches of rain at the ranch.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention the fire and ice ball, and I want to acknowledge the fact that I outbid Councilmember Lingle for the Lompoc football, but he outbid me for the Cabrillo football. So we're the football stars. Councilmember Lingle.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since you both mentioned that I was not at the wine tasting with the Rotary, which I will be fined for, I want to explain why. I'll explain why. I had a choice of going to the Rotary wine tasting or going to support my granddaughter in Bakersfield, who was representing Lompoc with the girls 9 and 10-year-olds in their AYSO, of which our Lompoc 10-year-olds went undefeated for the weekend. They didn't advance because they had 2 ties, but they did a good showing. So that's why I wasn't at the Rotary wine tasting. But I did attend some meetings. On the Wednesday, the 26th, and Thursday, the 27th, I was in Roseville for an NCPA meeting, of which the city paid my transportation and one-night hotel stay. On the 28th, I attended a successor agency to the RDA meeting here in City Hall, and I was also at the Fire and Ice Ball on Saturday.
And Bob, would you share with us how the Oversight Board meeting went, please? I'm not sure everyone knows.
The Oversight Board actually surprisingly went very well. We were able to pass all of our requests for funds coming back to the city, and those amounted to, what was it, about $125,000? Something like that, right?
125,000 was the administration budget.
Administration budget, yeah. So it went very well. We had one person that objected to one of the items, but it went very well. We got our money.
And you got the bond thing done too.
Got the bond
that we voted on.
Exactly right.
Good job. Councilmember Starbuck?
I also was at the Rotary wine tasting. I had a beer. And was at the Education Center dedication at Vandenberg Air Force Base with Councilmember Holmdahl. I must say that it was done on the base, but it is going to be a very good little benefit for us in the city because they do house a lot of advanced education out there that we do have access to. Laverne, one of the aeronautics museum or colleges, there's a lot going on out there, and they are fully up to date on everything. So looking at going to school out there.
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. I purchased tickets to the Rotary Wine Tasting event. And Kanasimi can attest to that. So I did buy 2 tickets, so I supported, but I did not go. As somebody worked in the wine industry for years, it's kind of one of those things, you know. So I did not attend, but I heard it was fantastic. There's been a lot of things I've been going to. The homelessness issue is a big one that I've been attending a lot and been supporting. I went to that Homelessness Action Summit down in Santa Barbara. That was really fantastic. I've been working with the school district on some things, but I also gave a speech to Vandenberg Middle School National Junior Honor Society inductees. They had 59 of them, which is amazing. And during the comments, one of these school administrators mentioned how many Harvard graduates they've had come from VMS. So it was just really great to kind of get the kids to, you know, to sort of reach for the stars kind of thing. And I talked to them a lot about technology. I figured that's the only way I could connect with middle schoolers, and it worked. So I was really happy about that. I think that's really all I had for today. I think there is something else, but I can't recall. So anyway, just, you know, as always, things to do.
Okay. We are therefore, the Lompoc City Council will adjourn to a joint meeting with the Human Services Commission at 6:30 p.m. on March 18, 2014 in the council chambers. And just a reminder to everyone, we will have the mid-year budget review the following week. Thank you for joining us, and have a great evening. Oh, and I also have copies of the Proclamation, A Year Without War, for anyone who would like one. Yeah, I did that.